Hello, everyone. It's Bobby from the Come Play podcast here. We're doing a little bit of a monologue right now before episode 3 here. Not one that we really wanted to do. Not one that we would ever thought we'd have to do, but as I'm sure most people are aware at this point of the horrific events happening in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Madden NFL 19 qualifiers. A gunman whose name I will not mention came in with a firearm into the tournament while the match was going on and ended up killing 2 competitors as well as wounding 10 people and before taking their life. As it's been a tough few days for the gaming world, as I'm sure you can imagine. I'm not going to talk about any speculations or rumors or any of that. I know how these news cycles go. They are not. There is a lot of false information that gets out, and admittedly, I've tried to keep distant from reading every quick tidbit about it because I'm just kind of waiting for the final report on what actually happened. So, as I'm not going to talk about any motive. I know there's speculation out there. I'm not going to talk about that. We just, me and Tyler here, simply wanted to give our thoughts out to these families who are suffering, as well as the esports community who are going through a period of grieving. Since then, EA has canceled future Madden qualifiers at the moment. And they have also released a statement, their CEO, Andrew Wilson, saying the following. To our players in the gaming community, I wanted to share some thoughts about the horrific and senseless act of violence that occurred in Jacksonville at the Madden competitive gaming event. I know many of us, myself included, are filled with shock and grief. Our teams have been working nonstop to do a weekend to respond to this terrible situation. First and foremost, it's unthinkable tragedy that Taylor Robertson and Elijah Clayton, 2 of our top Madden competitors, lost their lives in this way. They are respected, positive, and skilled competitors, the epitome of the players and personalities at the heart of our community. Their love of competition was evident through their participation in our events over the past few years. We are committed to supporting Taylor and Elijah's families through this difficult time, and we send our deepest sympathies to their loved ones, those injured yesterday, and to everyone affected. The event was a qualifying tournament for the Madden Classic, our first Madden EA major competition of the season. While these qualifying events are operated independently by partners, we work with them to ensure competitive integrity and to gather feedback from players. We have made a decision to cancel our 3 remaining Madden Classic qualifier events while we run a comprehensive review of safety protocols for competitors and spectators. We will work with our partners and our internal teams to establish a consistent level of security at all of our competitive gaming events. We've all been deeply affected by what took place in Jacksonville. This is the first time we've had to confront something like this as an organization, and I believe the first time our gaming community has dealt with a tragedy of this nature. Please take time to support each other through this challenging time. I mean, he basically said it all. I mean, I'm not going to get into the politics of my. It's a whole nother thing. And Tyler, I know you probably had some words yourself.
Yeah, I felt like me and Bobby discussed this, and we felt like as a gaming and sports podcast, obviously, this hit. Yeah, and us covering news about stuff too. We felt like we had to acknowledge it. Yeah, just a horrific event. Definitely, hits home with us, and Bobby said, we're not gonna get on here and talk politics. We just kind of wanted to get our, we wanted to give our sympathy to the victim's family and everybody affected by the events. It's a senseless act, and we just wanted to, like I said, just put ourselves out there and just say what we had to say about the event. But prayers to the families of the victims, and hopefully something like this never happens again.
We certainly hope so. NFL and has also released a statement saying they're shocked and deeply saddened by the horrific tragedy in Jacksonville. Hearts go out to all those affected, and We are grateful for the first responders immediately at the scene. We support our partners at EA Sports and will continue to monitor developments with local law enforcement. And Jaguars owner Shad Khan released a statement. It's just for the record, they wanted to make a point that they're not affiliated with the qualifier, but since it's happening in Jacksonville, they thought it was right for them to make a statement. It's possible to comprehend today's news. I'm heartbroken for the families and friends of the victims and can only express my deepest condolences as we try to understand why and how this can happen, not only here, but anywhere. What I can say is I know today that lifelong Jacksonville residents have known forever. We are resilient, compassionate, and remarkably supportive of our neighbors and friends, particularly in the most trying occasions. The strategy will ask the best of all of us, but I know how we will respond. Redskins also released a statement saying their hearts go out to those affected by today's tragedy in Jacksonville. Our thoughts and condolences with the victims and their families. And I'm sure many other organizations have made statements, but those are the ones that I have on me, and I wanted to read out. Like I said, like I was saying earlier, we just wanted to get our prayers out. Was a census act. I hope those affected will find their peace, and I hope that we never have to do another monologue like this again, because this sucks. 2 innocent people have died, 10 more innocent people got hurt. Didn't need to be this way. I just hope that we will get to a point where everyone can game or just live their lives without having to worry about things like this happening. Just a tragic day, but we are going to continue on with our, regular scheduled podcast where we're going to talk about some fun things. We're going to talk about, we gave our NFL season previews, which is pretty fun, if you ask me. It was a good time recording it, but we definitely needed to come on here and kind of air our grievances. So, again, thoughts and prayers to all those affected, and hopefully something changes out of this. Thank you for listening, and let's just get right into episode 3.
Everybody, and welcome back to the Come Play podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about the Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer. We're going to talk about the Urban Meyer investigation, and we're going to have our NFL season preview. AFC and NFC, we'll kind of get into everything. And here with me today are Bobby.
Hello.
Brendy. And Zach is back.
What's going on, guys?
So, yeah, we have some sports stuff today, a lot of it, but we did want to start off with the some video game stuff. Big thing that happened is the Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer was dropped, I believe, last week from when we're recording, and it looks awesome. It's my first impression. So what do you guys I know you all watched it, so what are your guys' thoughts?
So goddamn pretty, dear God!
It looks really nice.
Obviously it looks beautiful, but trailers are always going to be trailers like that, especially from Rockstar. They tend to make it a little bit more prettier.
It's a
more
production.
Prettier. Wow, good job, Zach.
Yeah,
it tends to be more beautiful than it actually is in game, which is fine because as long as it's a fun game, I'm not really too worried about graphics.
Right.
Like especially like super realistic graphics. It's something that like a game like Battlefield has sort of become gimmicky to me. Yeah, it's pretty, but it's just a shooter. It's
right.
I don't really get excited for Battlefield anymore because they put more into the visual aspect as opposed to the actual gameplay and all that stuff. But I think Red Dead 2 is going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like, I think that was everybody's first impression was how good it looked. Like it looks like real life, man. Like more than anything, and I think that was everybody's first impressions. I was telling the guys yesterday that I think that's the only video game trailer when you go to like the video on YouTube that basically every comment in the comments section was positive, which like not, usually you have people bashing it for whatever reason.
Opposite of Infinite Warfare, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
no, but it was funny. Like you read down, you're like so used to negative comments. I've been reading down. I'm like, this game looks awesome. This is so beautiful. So it's good to see. I mean, Rockstar. I always love the products they put out. They put a lot of time into it, and just like love the free roam aspect of their games. So
Absolutely, man. I played Grand Theft Auto 4 so much. I put so many hours into that game, and 90% of me playing the game was driving around the airport and doing the swing set glitch. And that was
I remember
hours of fun. Hours
and
hours of fun doing
I
that.
remember that.
And then GTA 5 came out, and they actually had, stuff to do with your friends. They made it more. They just gave you more things to do in GTA 5, and that's what I'm looking forward to about Red Dead 2, because it's sort of the same in Red Dead 1, where they had multiplayer, but it wasn't really much to do. You're just kind of free roaming, riding a horse off a cliff or whatever it is that you want to do with your friends. But I think Red Dead 2 is going to be improved, especially in the sort of just things to do aspect.
So one of the things about Rockstar that I think is kind of funny is like the things you can actually do in game. Like I remember with Red Dead 1, you could play like poker and like I forget what it's called, but like when you put your hand out and you do the knife between your
Finger
fingers.
fillet.
Yeah, like you could do that in like
Yeah, I remember that.
So like, and then I'm trying to think in GTA, like some of the things they had as well, like you could play like golf like in game, like so it's the stuff that Rockstar adds that is it's really good. And like I said, they always put out good content, so we are definitely looking for that, and it looks like a lot of people are too. Just going by the what I saw on the YouTube comments. So yeah, that was the first thing we wanted to talk about video game wise. Second thing was kind of a big controversy. I don't know if it was taken out of context. That's what I like. A lot of people had their own views on it, but it's Ninja. On the story that came out essentially is that he didn't want to play with female gamers, and obviously a lot of people took that and ran with it. You guys, I think Bobby and Brendy especially definitely have more info on this than me, so I kind of let you guys take the reins on it. But
yeah, so if I can explain, so basically what he was saying, he was basically saying that he doesn't stream with female streamers to avoid any controversy between them or him and whatever female streamer he's with, because if he's actually kind of smart, and I'll explain my position on it in a second, but it's he's kind of the biggest name in online entertainment right now. He's massive, right? So, and he's fully aware of meme culture online and how clips of his videos will get posted on YouTube and stuff like that. So say he plays the female streamer and there's something he says or does that even has like a hint of flirting with this female streamer, it's going to get clipped and asked about and completely ran down for basically ever. And it's always going to happen. So to kind of cut that out and to avoid himself and his wife of any drama related to that, he just doesn't stream female gamers. It has nothing to do with sexism or anything like that, because I had my Twitter feed was pretty split. We had half who were saying it's sexist and or that he's in such a position where he could promote female gamers and female streamers, that kind of thing. And then you have the other side basically saying what I just said, where he's just trying to avoid the drama. And he came out with a statement later saying, "Look, my family comes first. Me and my wife enjoy a lot of female streamers. It's just to avoid drama." And his wife supports this decision. It's just to avoid any of the crap. Obviously, people could say, "Oh, well, he can just ignore it." Well, you're a big public figure. It's kind of hard to ignore. You know what I mean? There's a lot of noise going around Ninja right now.
Right.
So any issue that happens, it's gonna annoy him a little bit.
And like, what happens like when he actually does decide to stream with a female, like with a female Twitch streamer? he'll like make one like probably like slightly like flirty comment, like not like hitting on, but like just it's just how girls and guys talk, you know. And then what's going to happen next? You're going to see a video on YouTube saying, "Hey, what's up, guys? It's Scarce here." Like, no, it is not worth all that. I don't think it's worth all that drama. Like, I not necessarily sure if he worded it the right way. And to be honest, I'm not even sure why he even really talked about it. Like, was he like specifically asked?
I believe he was asked. It was a certain website that interviewed him about it, and the problem with it was, of course, the headline was "Ninja, I don't play with female gamers." So you had to actually go into the article to actually read the full statement, which had to do with him streaming with female gamers, and he in the interview did explain his position and why he did it, and then had to actually clarify again a little bit later.
By the way, just for the record, the interview is with the video game website Polygon. That's right.
That's right. That's right. Polygon. Right.
So let me give you a bit of an alternate take on this.
Okay.
So, first of all, I want to make it clear that I don't think he was sexist for saying he doesn't want to stream with female gamers. But I disagree with that because I mean he's a fully grown adult. Like he can. And it also kind of insinuates that men and women can't just be friends.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's sort of like a path down the middle, or like here. I feel like he could play with female streamers, but people are saying that he's sexist because he wants to just, keep peace in his home between him and his wife, which I understand.
I honestly don't think his wife would really care that much. I think the issue is more so like the media and like his fans.
Right. I mean, the media is always going to blow stuff up to make it, a lot bigger deal than it is.
Right. I don't think his wife would give a shit about who he plays with, to be honest.
I see where he's coming from, but I disagree, and I think it's not that big of a deal, and he should just play with female streamers.
Yeah, here's the thing though. We also have to remember we're not in his position. Right.
That's true.
We are not these huge, this big public figure, right? Who has millions upon millions of fans and constant media attention and stuff like that. So like he said, I'm looking at the interview now and, he says, I don't play with female gamers. If I have one conversation with one female streamer where we're playing with one another, and even if there's a hint of flirting that is going to be taken and going to be put on every single video and be clickbait forever. And he is absolutely right. It happens all the time. There are YouTube channels dedicated to Twitch clips. Like there's one for Dr. Disrespect for random funny things he did or any drama-filled moments that happened on Twitch. There are YouTube channels dedicated to it. So if he plays with a female streamer and there's something that can be taken as a flirtatious moment, it will end up on one of those channels. It will get millions of views and it will draw attention to him and his wife. His wife is also a public figure. He's very active on Twitter. She has her own thing going on. So she's probably going to get harassed too, which he obviously, as her husband, does not want. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. Like, we're right now, we're a group of people who don't get much media attention right now. So we can easily say, okay, we're not gonna listen to what the fans are saying. Right.
We're not going to listen to what our 5 viewers are saying.
Right, exactly. And it's the equivalent basically of a whole arena of people screaming at him. That's how you have to look at it. So it's an interesting thing. I see why, and I definitely respect, it's in the end of the day, it's for his family. And it's really hard to knock a guy for doing something for his family first, ahead of his career. You really can't knock a guy like that.
I do want to ask though, isn't there other streamers that will play with female streamers that
most do
around? Most do. And those guys have a similar following to Ninja. Ninja's probably one of the largest Twitch streamers. You can fact check me on that, but he's definitely up there for one of the biggest.
Yeah, for sure.
Right now, Ninja's number one. And I think I forget. There's a certain stat that he has. I think it's like most followers or something like that on Twitch.
Right.
I can't quite remember, but he's kind of top dog right now.
So I want to know what's the takes on the other guys that are streaming, that have a similarly large following. Will they play with other female streamers?
I can't.
Depends on the person, really.
Yeah, well, I can't speak. So, I mean, definitely some of the bigger guys, like, okay, let's think. I don't know, Shroud, Summit. those guys, they've definitely done streams with females in the past, and they haven't had to come out with a thing like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're right in a sense that most of the time it's a group of guys streaming together. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Strap will play with Summit or something like that. I don't watch the scenes regularly, by the way. So if I'm wrong about anything, people who are listening can feel free to correct me. But that's kind of part of why some people were mad at Ninja for this comment. It's like, well, you could promote female streamers, so they can get a bigger following and be more accepted and this, that, and the other thing. So that was the other side of the argument, that he had the potential to be an advocate for female streamers, getting a similar type of fame, right? Like some of the, one of the biggest streamers. There are full-time female Twitch streamers out there, and a lot of them are very, very good. I follow a few of them. They're nowhere on Ninja's level, I guess, in terms of popularity or numbers, but their content is just as good. You know what I mean? So it's, he had a chance to be an advocate, I guess, and that's what people were really pinning down on him as well.
I guess I'm saying it seems silly to me that he can't work with a woman like professionally.
I don't want to work with a woman because she's a woman. I want to work with a woman because I feel like she would be fun to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Exactly,
yeah,
and that's where I disagree, because I don't show up to my job in the kitchen, not wanting to work with a woman because I wouldn't want it to get weird.
Right. Right. Everybody, no matter what gender.
I am stretching the comparison because I understand, like you were saying, he does have the large following.
Yeah, he was really in a lose-lose scenario in this interview,
right,
and in this situation. So, he chose the best scenario that was beneficial to him and his family. And like I said, it's really hard to knock a guy for making that decision.
Yeah, you got to respect that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I just think with the scrutiny of the public, especially with a figure that big, I'm not gonna say I guess the term wouldn't be hedging his bet, but he's just trying to. I just think he wants to avoid the controversy mainly,
Yep.
and
absolutely,
that's it.
Unfortunately, it did the exact opposite.
I mean, the tagline for the interview is like, the only way to avoid any rumors is not play with them at all. So it's all or nothing.
Yeah. So, that was our thing on Ninja, because it was a pretty big story. Especially, I remember seeing, like, when the story came out, a lot of people talking about it. So there you go. We got our daily dose of video games in. We apologize right now. It's kind of dead on the video game front right now. Like, I'm hoping, like, in the fall, when you start to get your, like, Black Ops and stuff out, that there's going to be more content, you would think, at least, because, with video games usually releasing, usually the big ones releasing in the fall, we'll hopefully have more content on that.
But I've already got Black Ops 4 pre-ordered, and I'm ready for that shit.
I played the beta, and it was good, so, I'll be getting on that too. But anyway, we're going to move on to some sports stuff now. Before we get to all the NFL stuff, or NFL and college football stuff, rather, we're going to talk about the Acuna for I'm trying to think of his first name. Why did I just blank?
Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr. Yeah, the hit by pitch controversy that really sparked sparked some conversation. If you guys didn't see, Braves are playing the Marlins about, what was it, a week and a half ago, you'd say?
About a week ago.
Yeah, I would say about that.
Bottom of the first inning, Kuna comes off the bat and gets drilled right in the elbow.
Very first pitch.
90-some mile per hour fastball.
Yeah. And it set off a lot of people, for good reason. I mean, we've seen, like, the dugouts clear that game, and Brendy, being the Braves fan, I want to get you as the first reaction, because I know you have a lot to say about this. So
okay.
The floor is yours.
So just give a little bit of background on why the hit by pitch even happened. So Ronald Acuna was brought up to the majors this season, and, like, let's say, like, the first half of the season, not necessarily like anything impressive. Like, he had a few homers, and had about, like, I'd like to say maybe like a 240, 250 batting average. So, like, nothing impressive, but like pretty good for like a rookie, I guess. Then all of a sudden, the second half of the season rolls around. The man is lights out. Like he's hitting bombs left and right. And the series against the Marlins in particular, I think he was like at 19 or 20 homers by that point.
Mm-hmm.
The series starts, and the first two games, he hits leadoff home runs. Very first swing, very first pitch, hits him out of the ballpark. And the third game, we're all thinking like, the third game we're all thinking, oh shit, it's gonna happen again. And like I remember I was in the kitchen making fucking tacos with my girlfriend, and I was like watching the game, and the first pitch I see, he gets fucking drilled in the elbow, and I'm like, oh shit, well that's intentional. And the thing that frustrated me like right at the beginning was like he wasn't thrown out right away. Like it took like discussion by the umpires to eventually throw him out, but I don't see how that was anything but intentional. But I'm glad that I'm glad he's okay, and he actually hit a home run yesterday leadoff as well, or it may not have been leadoff, but it was a pretty big blast, to say the least.
Yeah, and the Braves obviously having their not where people thought they would be at the beginning of the season, that's for sure. A lot of experts having.
Oh, absolutely. I did not expect the Braves to be this good, by the way.
Nobody,
as a hardcore Braves fan.
Yeah, nobody honestly did, but their star prospects are kind of, they're shining. So it's good for the Braves. But I guess a real quick discussion going on that point, like, what do you guys think of the, like, intentionally hitting somebody, like for the reason that like the Marlins did here, like, what's your, because my whole thing about it is like, dude, these guys are throwing like 95 plus fastballs at these guys, drilling them on purpose, and like, dude, like it's not like, and then if the batter comes back and attacks you with a bat, he'll get suspended for the rest of his life. But you just threw a hard ball, 95 miles per hour at this guy to hurt him. Like I just never, I think there should be a bigger suspension than usual with the hit by pitch stuff. But
yeah,
Brendy,
he was only suspended 6 games,
which is one
which
start.
he was going to appeal, but he eventually dropped the appeal. But 6 games is basically just one start.
Yeah, one start. So
Yep.
It's just like crazy. Like the people that do it intentionally, I just feel like should be suspended for longer. Because like I said, I mean that could really hurt somebody, and especially like where Acuna got it, like on the elbow, like you can fracture somebody's elbow, and then there goes their season. So, yeah, it's just that's kind of my take on it. I think it's crazy, man. Like, I think he probably should have got suspended a little bit longer, but.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he's probably the most hated player in the league now.
Yeah, right. All right, let's move on to some NFL stuff here. Just some quick little topics here. Adrian Peterson signing with the Redskins, filling a void there with Redskins rookie Darius Geis tearing his ACL in preseason and will be out for the season.
Right.
They signed him. He's 33 years old. A lot of people think he's done. And this will obviously it's a 1-year deal, so it's going to only be for this season. But what do you guys think of this signing?
It's gonna be hard to tell because it'll either be, let's be real, it'll either be a great signing or like just a waste of time.
Yeah.
If I were to take a guess, though, I would probably say, and you guys are free to disagree, I'd probably say it's a giant waste of time. I don't see him going back, like not necessarily even going back to his old Minnesota form. Just I don't see him being productive at all, really. But that is just my personal take.
Yeah, I think the other thing about it is too, I think the Redskins are in for a pretty rough season. I mean, that's at least my we'll get into that later, but I think that's my prediction just because obviously lost Kirk Cousins to Minnesota over the offseason. They have a new quarterback in Alex Smith, who is proven, but they don't have much pieces around them. Honestly, this. I agree with you. I think like this could be one of those because like when he signed with the Saints last year, which lasted what 5 or 6 weeks until he got traded. He basically did nothing. He also wasn't getting the touches that he wanted, but that's beside the point. Then he went to the Cardinals, and for a few weeks, like he had like I think he had like 200 plus yard games in a row. So this guy, the thing about the running back position, as we all know, is that they take a beating. So this guy's 33. That's old for a running back in running back years. So we'll see how long he can endure it. They do have Chris Thompson still there, who is like their third down running back, catching back out of the backfield kind of player. So he's not on his own there, but just an interesting thing. I don't know. I haven't seen. I looked just recently, and I actually haven't found like the actual number, but I do know it's a 1-year deal. So yeah, Redskins get him, and we'll see how that works out.
Right. It's funny, really quick. It's funny that you mentioned that the Cardinals, right? It's funny you mentioned them because like the Cardinals, usually a team with a good offensive line is going to have a pretty good quarterback, but the Cardinals' offensive line is not good at all.
Yeah, well,
and he still had a pretty like okay season with them.
I mean the Cardinals' problem last year is obviously their all-star is David Johnson, and he went down in week 2 or week 3, I think.
Right.
That was out for the whole year. That was the whole point of the trade. But yeah, you're right. Like, they don't have a good offensive line, and he did decent.
Yeah, I mean, for the time he was there, he did all right.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, we know. I'll obviously always remember Peterson for his Minnesota days, where literally he was like an MVP, like Canada essentially every season. Like this guy was just running wild. Obviously, he had the incident with his son, and then it's kind of been downhill from there. But maybe this is a bounce back for him. You never know.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. And the next football topic we're going to talk about is it's a controversial one to say the least. There was a report that came out since the last time we were recording that John Elway, the president, or not the president, the GM, Jesus, of the Denver Broncos, my favorite team, basically had an interview in a press conference and said about offering Colin Kaepernick a contract. And of course, this blew up because we all know Colin Kaepernick, the controversy there with the anthem, and he sued the league for basically saying that like they were colluding against him and like wouldn't sign him. So there is now. Here's the problem, and I'll explain where I came from. Like when I first seen this title, I'm like, wow, because like again, I'm a Broncos fan, and trust me, the last 2 years with quarterback has been hell. Like I would have put my like grandmother out there over Trevor Siemian. So like the fact that they were saying about offering him a contract, but what I've read since, because when I first started reading, it was like, oh, they offered him a contract, but didn't say when. Since reading more articles about it, essentially back in 2016 when Kaepernick was still in the 49ers, and this was before the kneeling situation, which is key in this. The Broncos were trying to restructure. They were talking contract with him to basically restructure his contract so they could make a trade with the 49ers to get him there and he could be on a different contract. Of course, that wasn't essentially said right away. They just said the Broncos offered him a contract, and obviously that made people go crazy. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. From what I've seen, it's the same thing as before. You got your two sides, right? You got the guys that think Kaepernick deserves a job, despite his, like what's going on off the field. I'll say, even though it's technically is on the field. And then you still got the guys that are just like anti Colin Kaepernick. He doesn't belong, blah blah blah. And what I don't know. There's some teams where you think like they could use help at quarterback, but what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I'll just say my thoughts really quickly. So, like, obviously, I'm not anti Colin Kaepernick. I want to make that clear, but I'm not necessarily sure if like I'll be completely honest. Like, I don't necessarily believe that the NFL is like colluding against him to like not sign him. But I don't think any NFL team wants that kind of heavy baggage on a quarterback that like may or may not be good anymore.
Mm-hmm. Bobby, your thoughts?
Kaepernick's a weird situation. I mean, most of it is like we were talking about before that, he became a political player, right? Whether you agree or disagree with him, he's making noise, right? Mm-hmm. And him being the face of any team is gonna create some drama from the fan base, among other things. He'll have a spotlight on him all the time. That being said, right? We were talking about him being signed as maybe a backup or whatever, and he's also made clear that he wants to be a starter, which doesn't seem likely at this point. But in a situation that he's good enough to be a starter, I don't see why anyone wouldn't sign him if he was as good as he was early in his career, right? If he was, let's say was one of the best starting quarterbacks in recent years, right? I have no doubt that a team would sign him. But it seems to me now that a team cannot justify, they don't think he's worth the extra noise.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to get a full payout, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if this was someone like, or like Tom Brady or Carson Wentz or Nick Foles or whoever, right? Top quarterback in the league right now. This might be a different story, and he might be signed somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, but because he's not this stellar quarterback anymore, there's no justification, and it's not worth the price they're putting into him to be signed by any team.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think honestly, I know there's definitely some owners and GMs that have been outspoken about like they don't agree with him, but there's also some that I've heard that kind of agree with what's going on. So and he's still not signed. So it's not a case of, well, everybody disagrees with him kind of thing. It's more of, again, you're basically going to be paying what's a fringe starter backup quarterback, for all the attention with it. So I think that's honestly the biggest problem. By the way, just going back on the point with the Broncos, like I was saying before, they were agreeing on a pay cut, essentially. They were trying to reconstruct his contract when he was still on the 49ers so they could make a trade. And that didn't work out. And then later that year during the preseason, that's when his protest started. So yeah, it was just an interesting story that came out. Again, you have to really look into these because, of course, the headline was, Kaepernick offered a contract and didn't accept it. Didn't say when or anything. So like, you do have to look into this. But that was a pretty big story earlier in the week, and just kind of want to give our thoughts on it.
Quick thing, just for everybody. Please, dear God, read past the headline.
Yeah, I know.
On any story.
For everything.
Please,
yeah, I know.
Everything. Please, dear God. Because listen, if you could just bear with me for this hot take that I'm about to give here for a moment. Please, dear God, read past the headlines. The headlines are meant for you to click, and I want you to actually click. Follow the clickbait if you absolutely have to for stories like this. Please, dear God, read the article. Get informed. Please, dear God, because the headline does not explain the whole story, and it takes things out of context. I don't think this is new information to anyone, but you saying that kind of triggered it a little bit. Like, please, dear God, if you're listening, please do the research. Dear God, please. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
So yeah, now we're gonna move on to our last NFL story before we do our preview a little later. Well, actually,
we have one story and a quick little tidbit.
Yeah. So actually, just don't listen to what I just said. Anyway, Des Bryant, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, is still a free agent as of August 24th. And the season is coming upon us. And obviously there's some teams interested in him. We've seen the Browns be very interested just recently. The Patriots were very interested. They actually released Kenny Britt in order to open up a slot. Like, that's what people are saying, at least. Now, I don't know if you guys watch Hard Knocks, the football series on HBO, but they actually had like a part of the show where he came in and he was talking to the management of the Browns and getting shown around the facility. And it was funny because when you're watching this, like, and I don't know if this is like this for everybody, but maybe, and also it could have had to do with the cameras being around, but he just looked happy to be there. Which is kind of funny. Now, the thing about it is that he left without a contract, so I don't know how much that actually meant, but there's still there's still interest between the two. Actually, I have an article here from NFL.com. This was from yesterday, from recording, August 23rd, saying that the two still have mutual interest. So, him leaving without a contract doesn't necessarily mean that they're done. But, for right now, they are, obviously he's not signed. And then the interesting thing that came out this week is, I don't know what it was on. It was on one of his social medias, but essentially he was buttering up Tom Brady, saying that he was, he's one of the best players of all time, and he was like one of his favorite players to watch. Bobby, being the Patriots fan, you guys lost Danny Amendola to the Dolphins this offseason. Edelman is suspended the first 4 games, I think, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So. And then they just cut Malcolm Mitchell. So there's some holes there. What do you think? Do you want Des Bryant? We've seen, he was one of the best wide receivers in the league a couple years ago, and now it's kind of, he's been a lot of hype, but not a lot of production. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, if he was to go to the Patriots?
I will preface this by saying I may have a little bit of bias on this, but I think I have some grounds to do so. Here's the thing. I said this to you yesterday when we started talking about this, that it's just going to be weird to see Des Bryant in a Pats jersey. Because just how I associate him with the Cowboys, and I'm not a fan of the Cowboys at all. So it would be weird to see him there. Here's the thing. Yes, he's been a very good wide receiver in the past. He has not had some productive years recently, but I definitely think that if he were to play for New England, I think his production would jump up because, and again, just think who's throwing to him, right?
The greatest quarterback of all time. And
exactly.
I'm a Broncos fan who loves Peyton Manning, but Tom Brady, the GOAT.
Yeah, seriously. And it's I mean, you look at who the targets that Brady has had: Edelman, Mitchell, Danny Amendola, and you got a guy like Edelman, like, short and fast, and Brady's hitting them dead chest, like from deep, right? And Des Bryant has enough skill to still be able to get open, right? So as long as he's able to run his route and get open, Brady's going to hit him. So he'll get yardage. I definitely think if he's signed with New England, he's getting the yardage. And honestly, it would be a good hole to fill, especially for the first few weeks with Edelman out. But then once Edelman comes out, it's going to be just like we still had Amendola and Malcolm Mitchell, two really good receivers, along with Gronk on tight end. He's got targets. So he's going to have those targets, and you're going to see Des Bryant probably be one of the top targets that Brady's going to have, like maybe top 2. You never know.
I mean, Des Bryant is a red zone threat. Like, that's his biggest thing now because he can go up and get them.
Right. And then Edelman can play deep. He's a deep target, and then you have Gronk hitting the slot. So,
and I just pulled up the Patriots depth chart, and I was saying about them losing like all the wide receivers they do, and then I'm looking at this depth chart, and I'm like, still like, look at all these guys they have. So, obviously Julian Edelman suspended. You got Chris Hogan, who I completely forgot about, who is very productive. Cordell Patterson, who they just got this season. He was on the Raiders last year. He's a quick guy. They signed Eric Decker, who I forgot about.
Yeah.
And the other guy I actually like, who I know he doesn't get the reps that, like, to get enough production, but Philip Dorsett, who they got in the Jacoby Brissett trade, I actually really like him a lot. He just doesn't get obviously the chances that, to make him be very productive. But yeah, I Dez is one of the better receivers when it comes to the red zone. You can see that in his touchdown numbers throughout his career. So I think for a team like the Patriots, especially for the time being, especially with Edelman out, it would be a pretty good signing. And then when you get him back, you just have like a bunch of depth, which is never bad. On the flip side, for the Browns, like, dude, why not? Like, I like, if you sign him. Well, okay, I say why not, but it depends on the contract. Like,
I don't want him for a very long-term contract.
No,
I think maybe a couple years, maybe.
I was even thinking, like, I mean, I don't know how. It's tough because
how old is he?
I was just about to look that up.
29. He's still got years left.
Yeah.
As a wide?
I mean, at least for the Browns, like, they just got Landry over the summer.
And also Josh Gordon is back.
Josh Gordon's back. Dude, that guy is a monster.
He's good.
Like, we seen last year when he came back from suspension. I think his first game back, or it was either his first or second game back. I think he had like over 100 yards. I might be wrong on that, but it was either close to, like, he had a good game.
Dude, I was hyped for Cleveland for that game when he came back. That. I was ecstatic to see him back on the field, and he did good. He's exactly what everybody thinks he is.
So I mean, look. We'll get on this later in our predictions, but I think a lot of people are a little too high on Cleveland. I mean, they have won one game in their last 2 years, but you add Dez, your offense is looking completely different from last year.
Yeah,
you got a quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
Foreshadowing.
You got Carlos Hyde in the backfield now, who they just got from in free agency, with already Duke Johnson, who they had last year, had a phenomenal year. You got Landry, Gordon, Dez, David Njoku at tight end. You're looking at like a pretty good offense. So, like I said, I don't buy, like, dude, people are talking about Super Bowl talk for the Browns, but I'm not even going that far. Obviously, I'm just saying that. You get some weapons, and I have to say this too. I think Tyrod Taylor, like, he's very, like, to me, he's underrated. I don't think he's appreciated like he should be. Like, I think he's a pretty good quarterback and just doesn't get the recognition. I would have loved for the Broncos to sign him when he was, I think, a free agent last year, or he might have got
on the Bills last year, so he got signed in, I think, the offseason.
Yeah, he got signed, and I guess he signed I'm trying to remember. He got re-signed by the Bills, and then obviously he got traded the year after he signed. But I don't know how much is left on that deal. But either way, like, I think he's very underrated. So yeah, I mean, dude, that's an offense to be reckoned with. And they have a pretty decent offensive line. They lost Joe Thomas to retirement, which is a big loss. Obviously, he was a pro ball tight end for basically his whole career. He was also one of those Ironman guy who like never missed a snap.
Mhm.
So yeah, but man, the Browns, like we talk about them every year. Like, is this the year? Is this the year if they get better? Is this the year they get better? And if they get Dez, I think you're looking at even a more talk about that. So
Well, I have a bit of a hot take. The Browns will win one game this year.
Yeah, pretty hot.
Yeah, a pretty hot take. No, they will win a game this year at the very least.
Yeah.
I think they have the potential, especially with these offensive weapons, to win a couple. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any noise on their defensive side of things that I can tell. But
I mean, besides so they got Denzel Ward, obviously, that their number 4 pick this year, and then they got Myles Garrett, the number 1 pick last year. So like, they're still developing though. So you can't expect guys to be good right away. You got to give them time. I will say anybody who has HBO and doesn't watch the Hard Knocks series who's in the football, I highly suggest it. It's a cool insight.
Kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you. I don't know why I did, but
it's funny though because like when I watch these, I kind of get a soft spot for the team. Like last year, it was the Buccaneers, and like I was like kind of rooting for the Buccaneers last year. Of course, it didn't work out very well, but yeah, I do highly suggest it. It's like behind the scenes of the NFL team. All right. Next topic, we got some college football here, and I'm pretty sure you know where we're going with this. Huge news in college football. Urban Meyer, the Urban Meyer investigation, the end all be all. Essentially, he got suspended 3 games for it. But if you guys don't know, there's a big controversy. Essentially, you know what? I'll actually, Bobby, you read a lot on this yesterday, so I'll let you have it. Just because you were saying a lot, and I know you have a lot to say, so how about you go ahead and explain it?
So, bare bones. I want to point out I am not going to read the whole thing again. It's a long list of events. The bare bones of it is they hired a new wide receiver coach, and Urban Meyer was a big advocate and proponent for him getting hired for OSU. Now, what he failed to do is he failed to inform the school that this wide receiver coach, Zach Smith, has a past of domestic violence. He was arrested in, I believe, 2015. I'm trying to pull up the article as I'm talking.
I seen like the first domestic violence arrest was in 2009, actually.
Oh, he's had multiple. Okay, that I didn't know.
Yeah. I'm reading here from SB Nation.
Right.
They get following Smith's 2009 domestic arrest. So there you go. And then I do believe there was an incident in 2015 as well.
Yeah, the big one that was cited was the one in 2015. But yeah, I'm seeing the SB Nation report that you're talking about, and yeah, there was one in 2009. So the problem with the non-informing is that there is a clause, and there's a rule that if you are aware of this information, that you have to report it. Especially since they were searching for wide receiver coach and they're doing background checks and everything else, which that's a whole nother part of the story. So he got in trouble for not informing about domestic violence in terms of the wide receiver coach. They ended up hiring him, and then everything kind of came to light. So then it became, why didn't Urban Meyer say anything? Why was he trying to hide this? Well, pretty simple, because he's trying to win football games, right? And the whole thing is he gets suspended 3 games. And in his contract, as I read this to you yesterday, he could have been dismissed and fired for multiple things because he didn't do this. And OSU would have been justified in doing so according to his contract. But they didn't do that. They suspended him 3 games, a slap on the wrist. Yeah. It's such an odd scenario to me, but 3 games ain't it, Chief? I mean, that was not the thing to do, and obviously caused a lot of anger. And the whole I had to find the report again. I believe it was Sports Illustrated, but don't call me on. I cannot find the article now. Talk about it. Let's think about Ohio State, their football.
for a second. They were, I believe, valued at $8 billion. Their football program alone, right? Urban Meyer has a career record with Ohio State at 73-9. Urban Meyer gets fired. Ohio State is in trouble for the season. Ohio State may drop in the rankings, may lose some things, whatever. And also hurts recruiting process, right? Urban Meyer considered one of the top college football coaches right now, alongside Nick Saban. The Ohio State doesn't have its face anymore. So it has the potential for hurting and causing the university to kind of go for a loss.
Sorry.
I just want to finish by saying that the reason Ohio State only said 3 games was because the investigators found that he has apparently been advocates for. He did a bunch of I think charity things or something like that. Like he's done things that in the investigators' eyes have helped with the promotion of or the awareness of. Sorry, I'm trying to think how to word this. To help with the advocacy for women and women's rights. So that's what they determined was kind of the balancing act on this whole thing, and why he didn't get fired immediately. Like if he had a history of domestic violence himself, or had done stuff like this in the past, he'd probably be fired because they couldn't give him an out. But the out for him was he's done things apparently in the past that have been on the other side of this kind of spectrum. So that's the story. There is a lot of other information I did not mention. I encourage everybody to go kind of read up for it if they want more. I cannot possibly sit here. That'll be a whole podcast talking about all the information. There's a lot of other proponents into this case, so please go do your research on that.
Real quick before I state anything, Brendy, do you have anything? I know you're a college football fan. Do you have anything to add to the situation?
I mean, not really, other than what we already discussed. I mean, just two reasons why it was uninformed. One, he really likes the guy. Number two, he really wants to win football games. I think it's as simple as that.
It is. That's exactly it.
All right. So my question to you.
With that said, that's not the right thing to do.
No.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question to you guys is what, obviously I'm pretty sure we all disagree that 3 games wasn't a good enough punishment, correct?
No.
Yeah, that's not the right way to go.
What do you guys think would be the correct punishment for this?
I can't. It's hard for me to defend someone who did stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
Worth noting that his apology was not taken very well either, because he apologized to OSU, he apologized to Ohio State, but he did not apologize to the victim of the domestic violence case, which a lot of people went after. I mean,
and rightly so.
Right. I think, I don't even want to look at him. I just want to look at what Ohio State did, because now I see more of an issue with Ohio State than anything else. Because it's like he literally, I was reading the contract, and like I said, please go look this up if you're listening to it. I don't want to say the whole thing. He could have been fired on 4 different things according to his contract. Ohio State was fully justified in doing so, and they chose to just kind of sub on the rest. I don't have an extensive knowledge of what those good things that kind of got him out of this were to really say, oh, well, he's actually a good guy. Only suspend him for a couple of games. I really don't know what it is, so I don't want to sound stupid and say, only suspend him. I think Ohio State had a opportunity to make an example, and they didn't take it. And I honestly don't know whether or not that's a good thing or not. I don't think 3 games is it, but I don't really have another answer. Firing I would have been okay with, but that's about as.
I probably would have been okay. I thought that's what was definitely going to happen.
I thought there was no way he was getting out of this. No way, especially with all the movements happening right now. Right, that just how he still is going to have a job and get paid a ton of money doing so is insane.
And honestly, if he had gotten fired, pretty much everyone except for Ohio State fans probably would have been okay with it.
Yeah. And
even some Ohio State fans.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think that the example that could be made out of him, the example that could have been made out of him would have been very, very good for the sport and for women in sports in general. But they chose not to do that, and it's kind of a sad thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with Brendy. I didn't think he was getting out of this, but sure enough, he did. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of disappointed in Ohio State. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, so like, I'm really trying not to be biased on here, and I don't think I'm being biased, but I really think he should have been fired. Just a small note on that, like, not that it really matters, but just to further the point of how the 3 games are such a slap on the wrist. Ohio State's 3 games that he will miss is unranked Oregon State, unranked Rutgers, and 16th ranked TCU, which will be a hard matchup, but 2 unranked teams.
God.
So literally, what is he missing?
Yeah.
They'll blow out. Oregon State, I guess, has not a chance, but like, it would be a miracle. Rutgers doesn't have a chance, and obviously TCU is ranked, but not that, again, in this grand scheme of things, it's not really about that. I just wanted to further the point of how much of a slap on the wrist this is. And there's a lot of outrage about this, including ESPN's Michelle Beadle. She has spoken about this, and the NFL and college football in general, and she's not happy with how things are going, especially, like I said, with the Urban Meyer, how that was handled. She's really not happy. So yeah, Bobby, again, I'm going to direct this to you because I know you did a lot of reading on this as well. Let's give me the story on Michelle Beadle.
Okay, so Michelle Beadle, for those who don't know, is the host of ESPN's Get Up, their morning weekday show. I think weekday. That I actually just discovered in the past couple of days because I turned on ESPN to watch Sports Center in the morning, but I found Get Up instead. I was like, oh, I guess this is a thing. I had no idea. Typical ESPN kind of general sports show. There's they have the panels and discussions and stuff like that. So a couple things with doing. So she basically said, she went on a tirade. Deservedly so, like I said. So she said this is going to be her second season where she's not watching the NFL or college football, just football in general, because she believes that the sport itself is not doing anything for women, or she even mentioned people of color. And she said she's just looking forward to the NBA, and that's what she's looking forward to. And she said her not watching football just frees up her Saturdays and Sundays now, frees up her weekends. So she's basically saying, until things change, I'm not watching your product.
So she's not watching the product of her own company?
So this goes a little deeper. So what people have also pointed out, so ESPN, the show Get Up has not been getting very good ratings. It's not getting the viewers, and it's kind of a flunk right now. So what ESPN did for this rant was that they actually added a panel, a panel that rotates throughout the week for NFL and college football, because they were banking on the fact that since football season is coming up, it might bail the show out of going into complete disaster. But now it looks a little weird because she just went this whole tirade how she's not watching football, but a lot of the show is now going to center around football. So then the other part of it was like, well, maybe she's trying to get fired, which I don't know how factual that is, but it'll definitely be interesting if she's not going to be on the show, because they're going to try and center that show around football and try and get his viewership back, or if they're just going to end up letting the show tank and try and do something else. So who knows? But that was her whole feelings about the Urban Meyer thing, just kind of solidified it for her.
I'll put my take in here real quick. I kind of agree with her in some senses, and I don't agree with her all the way, and like not watching football and stuff like that. I'm also obviously not a woman, so like it doesn't affect me like it affects her. She's also a prominent, in ESPN and stuff like that. She's been on some pretty big shows. I think the way the NFL has mishandled domestic violence cases in the past, you had Ray Rice in 2014, you had Zeke last year. Now Ray Rice was, that he did get suspended for that. You had like the Zeke thing was a big thing for me, like where you had he's like, oh, he'll be suspended. And then like he didn't get suspended till like what, week 8 or something like that, or week 10 or something like that. And and then he ended up missing the whole season. Then you get in college football with another case like this, and this is also in the eyes of many, especially her, it's mishandled. Look, I have always been a big proponent with like these domestic violence cases. Like I don't know why that they let this happen. I feel like every time you hear something about domestic violence case, you hear about it, like it just going wrong essentially. Like somehow they're getting out of it or something. I'm not particularly happy how the NFL has handled that. You've seen it in baseball this season. We touched on this earlier this year. Roberto Ozuna, the former closer for the Blue Jays, now of the Houston Astros, got suspended. I think it was Brendy. I don't know if you remember. I think it was 80 games for domestic violence. I want to say.
You said Marcell Ozuna?
No. The closer for the Blue Jays, Ozuna. I just said his first name. I forget it.
Well, I do know a notable case about that kind of stuff when it comes to the Braves.
I'm sorry, Roberto Ozuna. Just for that was who I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually do know there's a situation about that. You guys may or may not have heard of someone named Hector Olivera.
Yep.
He played for the Braves for like 2 years, and then during the 2016 season, he was involved in a domestic dispute and was suspended for 82 games without pay. And somehow, like miraculously, the Braves managed to trade him, so like they didn't have to deal with that shit.
And which is funny because the Blue Jays do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just like I said, I just don't like how the NFL has handled the domestic violence. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy about a lot of things in the NFL, whether you're talking about the anthem or domestic violence or even the substance, policy with, there's a whole thing about marijuana and stuff like that. So, yeah, just like I said, I agree with her in some form. Again, like for me, it's not going to change anything, and maybe that's a bad thing saying about me. I'm not happy with something. It doesn't mean that I'm going to take it out completely, but I would like to see change, and I think, especially like I said with these domestic violence cases, I think women they're not getting justified, I guess is the right word. So, but yeah, that was a big story from ESPN.
Yeah, and we know that we're not, we don't deal with a lot of the struggles that women do. But that doesn't mean we can't be proponents.
For sure.
Of advocacy. So,
yeah, and we're gonna touch on one last thing here. It's very quick. This is literally completely different from the two things we were talking about.
Yeah, it's a very lighthearted thing. Let's
Yeah,
end on something a little bit fun, and I actually have a clip of this.
Yeah, so basically I'll just say real quick that quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, Tyrod, formerly known as Tyrod Taylor, now Tyrod Taylor. Basically there was this whole this thing that came out about how his name is actually pronounced Tyrod instead of Tyrod, and I'll let Bobby play that clip real quick.
Yeah, so I just found this on YouTube real quick. I believe this is when he was talking like a press conference type thing. It's a phone video, and they talk about it a little bit. So it's pretty short. So here we go.
So for the record, do you want Tyrod or Tyrod? We've heard both.
I mean, Tyrod is definitely what I've heard the most in my life.
But I mean, my mom calls me Terod, but she also doesn't call me by my first name. So she calls me by my middle name, Diallo. She's only allowed to call me that. So y'all can't start calling me. So the last week go about as good as you could have hoped for those couple of drives.
Yeah, so that was it. So I don't know if I gave a clarification, but yeah, so the idea was that it has always been Terod, but he just kind of let the media just kind of take it. He didn't really feel the need to correct it. So.
Yeah, dude, like, and actually that clip you just pulled was also featured on Hard Knocks, so I had seen that already, but like, he just seems like one of those guys that are just like too nice to correct the media, and he's like, whatever, man. Like, by the way, just to put this out there, Diallo as a middle name, that is a badass middle name, bro.
It is.
Dude, are you serious?
Terod Diallo Taylor.
So
I love it.
So just a quick little thing. I mean, I've always, it looks like Tyrod, but hey, man, like, look, it doesn't change much in the grand scheme of things. Just a quick little thing from the NFL that maybe you didn't know or didn't see. So from now on, it is Tyrod Taylor. Now you know.
Taylor.
All right, now we're going to move on to the part of the show that is going to cause a lot of yelling, a lot of debate.
It was prior to yesterday.
Yeah,
for sure. So we're going to talk about our NFL season previews. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each division. We're going to have our rankings for each division, where we think teams will sit, and we'll kind of justify why we have it that way, or we don't have to go through everything in particular. There's teams we want to talk about, and then at the end we're going to have our playoff rankings. Depending on how our division picks went, and then we will have our Super Bowl pick. Let me preface this by saying, obviously, we are not experts. There's a lot of guys out there who are experts and make these at the beginning of the season, and they're sometimes right. We are not. So yeah, we just kind of did this for fun. We'll kind of see at the end of the year who was right, who was wrong. But that's kind of the gist of it. Don't take it extremely seriously. We're just kind of messing around here and seeing what we think. So
that being said, we follow football, I think, enough to make these kind of distinctions. But no, we are not insiders or experts. There are people a lot smarter than me who get paid to do this for a living. I try and do as much as I can with the little free time that I have. Love football. I'm in 2 big fantasy leagues, and I play daily and all that stuff. So it's not like I don't know football. I just definitely don't know the ins and outs of every team and all the depth and all that. But this is still fun to debate about, especially since we are all biased here. Let's not try and pretend that we're not. So, go ahead, Zach.
Well, real quick, just before, with that being said, at least in my picks, even though we're going to get to the point where it doesn't look like it, I try to be as unbiased as possible.
Yeah, try.
But yeah, so I think how we'll do this is, so we're going to start with the AFC. We're going to start with the AFC East, go to the North, South, and then West, and then we'll do the same order for the NFC. And then how we'll do it is I'll start with you, Bobby. You can give your rankings, kind of give your reasoning. I'll go to you, Brendy. You just do the same, and then I'll come back to me, and then we'll do the same, and then we'll, go to the next division. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, which one are we starting with?
The AFC East. So it's going to go AFC East, AFC North, AFC South, and AFC West. So, Bobby, AFC East, what are your rankings?
Okay. All right. This AFC East should not take more than 2 minutes of our time. Mm-hmm. So this division has known for being just god awful, right? And it has the Patriots. So I have Patriots again winning the AFC East. If the Pats tank, I may jump out of my window, but I don't see that happening. The only notable things I see happening are I see the Jets actually on the rise and moving up to second in the division. Not a close second, but very much still not a decent record, but finishing second in the division anyway.
and the Bills in third, and the Dolphins rounding out the bottom there. Bills and Dolphins are just tanking. They have no one. The Jets are starting to get some good players that are going to be a little more consistent. So you'll see them a little bit moving up the rankings to second, but still no one is going to touch the Pats. I think we're all in agreement there. No one's touching in that division. So that's my AFC East. Brendy?
All right. Is it my turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I pretty much agree with what you said. I'm going to have the Patriots at 1, except I'm going to have the Bills at 2. And I'm going to have the Dolphins and Jets, at the bottom. Like, honestly, those teams are probably like as equally bad as could get, like the Dolphins and the Jets. And the reason I don't have the Bills lower isn't because I think the Bills are going to do well. It's just because I think that the Dolphins and Jets are going to be a lot worse than you think. And I think that Josh Allen, might have a solid starting season. I think he can certainly perform well under the Bills' offense. But obviously, they're not. I don't see them making the playoffs, but I don't see them being as bad as the Dolphins or the Jets.
Well, I'll say this with the Bills real quick. That is even if Josh Allen plays, because there's a chance that he sits this year. They just traded for AJ McCarron from the Bengals in the offseason. So he's supposed to be the starting quarterback, although he just got injured in preseason. And the first thought was that he broke his collarbone, but now it looks like it was not that. I don't know. It was kind of a weird story. But anyway, my AFC East rankings, basically same as Brendy's. I got Patriots 1, Bills 2, Jets 3, Dolphins 4. Look, this is the Patriots division to lose. Obviously, they're the powerhouse here. They haven't not won the AFC East since 2008. And when they didn't win that division that year, it's because Tom Brady tore his ACL in week 1. And they were stuck with, I think it was Matt Castle. I think it was the quarterback, which is funny.
And Matt Castle.
Yeah. So, and then with the Bills, I think it's going to be interesting, like I said, with AJ McCarron, because he's only started 11 games since being drafted in 2014. I think the big factor for them is going to be their defense is still, pretty decent. And then I think LaShawn McCoy is going to have a big season to open up, passing plays for their offense. You can't be running for nothing and then relying on AJ McCarron to run, your offense. I just don't think that's going to go well. And then I'll just say quickly on the Jets. I think that they are, they just drafted their face of their franchise now, and Sam Darnold, excuse me. What I'm saying right now is I don't think it looks like he's going to sit as well this year. They have Josh McCown, who actually played relatively decent last year before getting injured. They also have Teddy Bridgewater, who they brought in. So you're probably looking at a year off for Darnold, and then we'll see about next year. And the Dolphins are just, it's not looking good for the Dolphins. They lost Jarvis Landry, obviously, who led their team and the league in receptions last year with 112 and had a little less than 1,000 yards. So, that is the AFC East. Bobby, the AFC North, your rankings?
Okay. So, I have the Steelers taking in the North. Again, there is still no team in that division that's going to touch a team like the Steelers. And they're a threat. They're still a threat. The Steelers have always been a thorn, and I'm a Patriots fan, as I think everyone's picked up at this point. Have been a thorn in my side. I was saying to Tyler, I was reminding him, so last year, the Steelers and the Jaguars played against each other in the playoffs. Whoever won played the Pats. And I kept saying that I wanted the Jags to win over the Steelers. And Tyler here, and I think a couple other people I had this conversation with, thought I was crazy. Because
I feel like I was the only one that said you weren't crazy.
I can't remember who else I had the conversation with, but yeah, you might have agreed with me. So my argument was, the Jags are a good team and still a team that I'm going to be biting my nails at. However, the Steelers are the team in the AFC that always have the possibility of having our number. And all it takes is one game for them to beat us, and then we're out, and then they're moving on to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So that was it wasn't that the Jags weren't good. They obviously beat the Steelers to get to us, but I was a lot more scared of Pittsburgh than the Jaguars. So
just real quick, just for clarification, so I don't get roasted for this. I mean, I thought the Jaguars were a bigger threat to the Patriots just because the Jaguars' defense is as elite as it gets.
Jacksonville.
Saxonville. So that was my thing. Obviously, we've seen some good ass matchups though between the Steelers and the Patriots. So sorry, I just had to interject that in there.
No. And listen, here's the thing: you had a legit opinion. I just, we both had certain sides of it. That's all.
I feel like all three of those teams, though, like really quick, I feel like all three of those teams like would match up really well against each other and like would be a real contest. Like
because even that Steelers Jacksonville game, like that was, if I remember correctly, the Steelers were down like 17-0 or like I think that's what the game started out, and then it ended up being like 45-38. I'm like literally spitballing here because I can't remember. Just thinking in my head, but yeah, that was a unbelievable game. Sorry.
But just to get back to the rankings, so I had the Steelers winning the North, and then I actually had the Ravens as second. And then here is the hot take for this division. I have the Browns in third in the division, and Bengals rounding out the bottom. The Bengals really have no uplook whatsoever. The Browns do, especially if Browns end up landing Dez. Yeah, no, they're winning games. They're going to be winning some games. They're definitely not playoff ready, but they're definitely in a position to start, making the dynasty comeback here. So I have Steelers winning. I have Ravens in second, Browns third, and Bengals fourth. And that is my AFC North.
All right, so for me, the AFC North is kind of like the AFC East, except slightly better. But obviously, I've got the Steelers at number one. And then, honestly, like that. And then here's the part where, like, I was kind of like deciding for a long ass time. I decided I'm going to go ahead and put the Ravens at 2 because despite what the Ravens have done the past few years, they still have that kind of, not necessarily potential, but I feel like they are going to be just mediocre and then nothing else, whereas the Bengals and Browns are going to be basically fighting for the number one pick next year. I think it's probably okay. Here's another hot take. Then this is going with Bobby as well. I have the Browns at 3, and then I have the Bengals as the worst team in the NFL.
Oh, okay. I think that's
my picks.
I think that's a piping hot take.
No, honestly, I actually agree with Brendy here. I think I have the same exact rankings, and just quickly to say, I think the Bengals are going to be one of those teams fighting for the first overall pick. I will get to that in a second. Steelers at number 1, obviously. I mean, this is, again, their division to lose as well. They have so many offensive weapons. You got Le'Veon there. You got Antonio Brown. Probably, he is, I think, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in football right now. You got the likes of Rising Star, who I really like, one of my favorite players in the league, Juju Smith-Schuster, another wider. Look, it's been well documented that this could be Le'Veon's last year with the Steelers because they can't get a contract done. I expect him, just to say it, bluntly, I expect him to go apeshit this year. He's going to be playing for as much money as he possibly can, and I think he has an MVP caliber season, and I think he shows the league that he is the best running back in the league. I think, Big Ben is, we kind of seen last year, well, it's tough to say because it looks like he's starting to wear down, but then he'll have games, like ridiculous games, where he'll throw 5 touchdowns and 400 yards. So, you never know with that guy. But, yeah, I think the Steelers are not only, a favorite in the AFC North, but we'll get to it later. I think they're a playoff favorite as well.
Justin Herbert to the Bengals.
Yeah. I don't even.
Quarterback for Oregon.
Okay. I was like, oh, I gotcha. I'm like, I didn't hear you for a second because you cut out, but yeah, yeah, that could be very true. Second, I had the Ravens. It was for me. It was a toss-up between the Browns and the Ravens for second. I think it's going to be. I honestly think it's going to be close between these two in terms of record for second. I just put the Ravens just for the fact that I like their defense a little bit better, and also they actually added some weapons on offense at the wide receiver position, which they desperately needed. They got Michael Crabtree, Willie Snead, and John Brown. All coming for excuse me, all coming to the team from free agency. I think also, just like Brendy said earlier, like they always seem like a team that's just like they're just mediocre all the time. Like they're never good, they're never bad. I think they finished second. And then I had the Browns finishing third, but they could even have the same record, just lose on a tiebreaker to go to third here. I think they obviously have a bright future. I don't buy the Super Bowl talk. This team, like I said earlier, has one win in 2 years, which is kind of amazing that people are talking about them being a Super Bowl favorite. And in my notes here, I actually have what I said earlier. I think Tyrod Taylor is really one of the most underrated QBs in the game. I'm not saying he's like top 5 or anything. I'm just saying like I think he doesn't get the love that I don't think he gets the love that he deserves. So I have them at third. And then the Bengals, like Brendy said, I have them as a team competing for the number 1 overall pick. Andy Dalton, for me, like he never scared me as a force in the league. So I think depending on how this year goes, they could be looking at getting a new quarterback next year, and through the draft, as Brendy just said, they could be looking at a quarterback there. Also, just a note for the Bengals, just to further the point, they lost left tackle Andrew Whitworth and right guard Kevin Zeitler to free agency, who is like their 2 best offensive linemen. So all I gotta say is poor Andy Dalton back there. Like he's gonna be getting killed. And another thing I gotta say is poor AJ Green, man. It's gonna be a long season for him.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the AFC South, a division that you would say 2 or 3 years ago was probably the worst division in football, and now is looking like one of the better divisions in football.
Footballs, yeah.
And the CFL too.
Yeah. In both NFLs, by the way.
So yeah, Bobby, take the floor.
All right, the AFC South. I think there is no doubt the Jaguars are going to have another decent year, so I have them at the top of the AFC South. Still a threat. Still have Fournette. As long as I have him, I think they're good. And that defense is still going to be a problem, but they're going to be good on fantasy. I can say that much. So looking forward to see what they do. Second, I got the Titans. I don't have too much insight on their team as a whole, but I know they were still decent last year. And compared to the Colts and the Texans, I think they're going to have the better season. So I have the Titans going in second. Third here, I have the Colts.
What? Talk about a hot take.
Oh my god.
Talk about a hot take.
So I'm basing this just off of Andrew Luck. For
what?
Yeah, so here this is a very, very long stretch. I know this, but I felt like making this interesting. Simply there, I'm waiting for the comeback. However, I am fully aware that they can easily take fourth. The Texans did not have a good showing last season. That's also for a couple of things as well, injuries and so forth. And you can argue that. I am aware of that, but for the most part, they really have no power to them, at least the way I see it. So I can see the Texans having a pretty bad year. At the same time, it's not like the Texans are going to go, have only 2 wins or whatever. They can easily win some games, but if anything, I see both the Colts and the Texans kind of tying for the record at the bottom and just being a tiebreaker. So I don't think it's too high of a take personally. I am aware that the Colts really have nothing besides luck, but It's what?
It's steaming. It's a
Ah,
steaming take.
I
I
have
don't
to
know.
stand now because I can't fucking sit on that hot take.
But yeah, so that's my AFC South. Yeah, I don't have too in depth of a reason. I'm just kind of playing it along what happened last season, but being aware that other factors were in play as to why that happened anyway. So, yeah, AFC South.
Okay, my turn. All right, so like you said earlier, the AFC South, I wouldn't necessarily call them one of the better divisions in the NFL personally, just because like they have the Jaguars and then like the Titans are like Titans and Texans like maybe kind of middle ground, and then the Colts just kind of bottom of the barrel. So I'm not necessarily sure. Like I'll probably say they're maybe the fourth or fifth best division. I got the Jaguars up top. Probably, I'm not entirely sure how many wins they're going to have because last season was a great season, and I feel like they're only going to get better. There's no telling if they're going to finish with more wins or less wins because they have such a young, talented core that I feel like they're going to be good for years to come. So I have them atop the division. I have the Titans at 2. If Marcus Mariota comes back and balls out, then I definitely see them as a definite wild card spot. And then number 3, I have the Texans. I feel like Deshaun Watson is going to get a lot better with another year under his belt. One thing that worries me though is kind of like the lack of receiving core. They only have that what's his name?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, they only have Hopkins. And their defense, I think, is going to be probably middle ground, maybe a little bit better. So I think that they could probably get 7 or 8 wins. And then the Colts, I have at the bottom because let's be real, they have Andrew Luck and then no one else. I don't see them getting more than 4 wins.
I almost agree with everything you said, except I have one thing flip flopped. I have the Jags winning this division. I like everything you said, man. Like that's a young core that's gonna be good for years to come. That Jacksonville earned its name, Saxonville, but their stats last year were crazy. They led the league in net passing yards allowed by 300 yards, which is like a pretty big. When you're looking at this ranking, like it's pretty close, like the whole way, and then you get to number 1, and like it's such a big thing from the rest of the league. They got a scary secondary, led by Jalen Ramsey, who has been in the news recently for his off the field talk, but that's for another time.
Right.
Yeah, I think they take this division. Second, I have the Texans. I really like what I saw last year out of Deshaun Watson and the games he played. Obviously, he tore his ACL and missed the rest of the year. I think it was like week 5 or 6. I want to say that happened. I think the biggest problem for the Texans last year was they could not stay healthy to save their life. You lost Deshaun Watson, you lost J.J. Watt, you lost Whitney Merciless, 3 huge players on that team. I know they even had more injuries. I just can't even think off the top of my head.
They also had a suspension and everything else. I'm kind of reading again.
Yes.
So they had a bunch of things happen. It was worth noting that a lot of the big reason for their 4-12 record last year was losing 9 of their final 10 games of the season. So yeah, string of injuries definitely hurt them, but they also kind of, they had Tom Savage, a quarterback who was very inconsistent, and Lamar Miller wasn't putting up either. But yeah, a lot of injuries led to the season. So as long as everyone stays healthy, my hot take is definitely out, but at least I'm aware of this.
I mean, I think like out of the teams in the league, I think they were just hurt the most by injuries. Like I said, like they lost so many guys. Look, I mean, I think J.J. Watt, like, it's funny because like I've been looking at his like Instagram posts and stuff like that. Like he does not seem thrilled that he's missed most of the last 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think he comes back huge this year. I think he's going to lead the league in. Well, I don't want to say lead the league in sacks, but I think he's going to be up there. So I have the Texans at 2. I have the Titans at 3. I think the Titans are going to be like a bubble playoff team. I think Mariota is a very good quarterback. I think they're only getting better. They also have one of the better offensive lines in the league. So yeah, I have them finishing 3. I think the problem for them is going to be that they have the Jaguars in their division, and a healthy Texans team is a very good team. So I think that's going to be their biggest problem.
They do not have a very good starting season, gotta say. At least they're playing Pats first, and they got the Titans, which that should be a pretty must-win game for them, even right off the bat. They do have the Giants. They have the Colts. The Cowboys, they will play the Jaguars. But yeah, just the first couple games are going to be interesting with them. That's all.
Yeah. And then real quick, I just wanted to say to finish off this division for me, the Colts are, they're getting Andrew Luck back, but I think they're going to come slow. I think they're going to be slow out of the gate just because Andrew Luck's coming back from a shoulder injury that knocked him out for the whole season last year. His only real, real threat on offense, at least receiver he's throwing to is T.Y. Hilton. I think they're the bottom of this division. But I don't know. I think I was saying before, like it being one of the best divisions of football, like not necessarily the best, but it's just again one of those divisions where I think I think the Jaguars are obviously the favorite, but it wouldn't surprise me to see the Texans be up there with them or the Titans. I think there's a lot of ways that can go. So that was kind of my point to it. But we will now move on to the last division in the AFC West. Bobby, go ahead.
All right, AFC West. So I know this is where Brendy's going to disagree with me. So I have the Chargers winning this division.
I don't see it.
I'm going off straight momentum by itself. They kind of prove themselves as they're here, they're still here. They have some weapons to use. So I think compared to the rest of the teams in this division, I think they have it the most. This division is not a powerhouse by any means, but out of those 4 teams, I think it's definitely the Chargers. Second place, got the Chiefs. They've been a really odd team when you think about it. There have been times where they've been talked about as true playoff contenders, but then they end up fighting for wild card spots. It's really strange. It's really strange.
And then real quick, and then every time they do make it, because like last year, then they lost to the Titans, and that was a game they should have won. So it's like I do agree there.
Yeah, it's super strange, but I have them in second. Third, I got the Raiders. They just can't capitalize, man. They have in their car, and they have Marshall Lynch. And you would think that'd be enough weapons to make some noise, but it never seems to happen. I thought this team was going to be dominant, and then Derek Carr ended up getting hurt. But man, I don't know. I'm not sold on this team yet. Not quite yet. I may be proven wrong this season. Who knows? But I don't think they have it yet. Rounding it out, Tyler, sorry to say, I got the Broncos at the bottom of the AFC West. Just simply compared to these other 3 teams, I don't think they're due for an upshoot year. So I have them dead at the bottom, and they could easily again beat one win down from the Raiders or tie the Raiders and lose in a tiebreaker kind of deal. But yeah, I definitely have the Raiders above them in this ranking. So my AFC West.
All right. Well, this may or may not be a hot take. You can decide for yourself.
Oh, it's hot.
After I say it. No, I'm not going to say what you think I'm going to say.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to say I believe that the winner of the AFC West division is only going to have 8 or 9 wins.
Oh, okay.
Really? It's that hot?
It's piping, but it's not as bad as what I thought you were going to say.
Okay.
It's piping.
Hear me out. I believe that just about every team in this division, except for the Broncos, is probably going to have like 8 to 10 wins. And except for the Broncos, of course. Which is why I feel like it's hard to argue against just about any team coming out top of this division. Which is why I have the Raiders at finishing at the top of the division. I'll give them 9, maybe 10 wins if Derek Carr is able to play and not die. Then I feel like that would be great for the Raiders. The only thing I'm worried about is like their inability to finish football games and their inability to just not get blown out.
Who's being thrown to on the Raiders? Because Crabtree's gone, right? So
they just got Jordy Nelson in the offseason.
Jordy Nelson, that's
Amari
right.
Cooper.
And then
Amari
Cooper. Okay.
So I have them just because I believe they have the best offense in that division. I'd probably give to the Raiders. Number 2, I have the
take.
Number 2, I have the Chiefs. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to be, available right from the start. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be an immediate baller. But the reason I have the Chiefs in number 2 is mainly because of I don't believe in the Chargers as much as everyone else does. I'll have the Chargers at number 3, just because, like I said, I'm not sold on them. I believe they haven't really shown me much, and I don't know if this season's going to be any different. And then the Broncos, I have them probably last, especially with whoever. Has it been announced yet who their quarterback is going to be?
It's going to
Case Keenum.
Yeah, it's going to be Case Keenum. He's going to be the guy.
Okay. Case Keenum is not a terrible option, at least not in my opinion. But I don't believe he's going to carry the Broncos to the promised land of getting atop of this division or anywhere close to it, really. That's my pick for the AFC West.
All right, so let me preface this by saying I am a Broncos fan, and I'm telling you, I really am not biased about this. This is really what I think. The other thing I want to mention is this division and the NFC South were the 2 toughest divisions for me to pick.
This was the toughest for me.
Yeah, this one's tough. And like I said, the other one was NFC South. So, at the number 1 spot, I do have the Los Angeles Chargers. Talk about another elite defense. That's another elite defense. Chargers were 3rd in pass yards given up last year, and also 3rd in points given up. They have a pretty good secondary with Casey Hayward leading as their number 1 corner. They also have, the one thing I do like about them is their young pass rushers. You obviously got Joey Bosa. Their the high draft pick from a couple years ago. You got Melvin Ingram. I think the defense is defense wins championships, and I think that's kind of where I was leaning with these picks this year. And I think I kind of always have been. I think, like I said, you've seen it. Like, I can talk from firsthand experience. Like the Broncos winning the Super Bowl in 2016. Like, that offense sucked, but they just had one of the best defenses. They had the best defense in the league that year, and in my opinion, one of the better of all time. Not the best, but up there. So there we go. But yeah, I have the Chargers as number 1. Now this is where some people are gonna be. They're not gonna be happy. I got the Broncos at number 2. I was waiting for it, but hear me out. Look, like I said, I'm a fan of this team. I've watched them. I watch every game. Last year, they had Trevor Siemian at quarterback. There's no other way to put it. He sucked. Like, he's awful. I think, now a lot of people argue that the year Case Keenum had last year was, a one-off. The thing about it is not that I don't agree or disagree. Like, I'm indifferent on it, but I think the main thing is he fits the Broncos scheme on offense. I think he's the quarterback that they need to have a successful offense. So I think that's the big thing. If their offense can be even a little bit better than what they had last year, I think that would be big. Because look, man, as much as people bash it, I think the Broncos still have an elite defense. They were third in net total yards given up last year, which if you and let me finish that. So they were third in net total yards, fourth in passing yards given up, and fifth in rushing yards given up. And if you watch any second of the Broncos last year, they with their how bad their offense was and how bad their punter was, which is a weird thing, but I'll get to that in a second. They lost the field position battle so much in games that it was not funny. Like they would literally be putting their defense in holes all game. Um, one of their biggest additions this summer, which is again is funny to say, is Marquette King at punter, one of the best punters in the league. That'll help a lot just in terms of field position battle. Look, they lost Aqib Talib in the offseason. Obviously, a big blow. But they still have Chris Harris Jr., Bradley Roby. I think can step up. That defense is still elite, and I love the pick they had this year at number 5, getting Bradley Chubb. Kind of fortunate there with all the quarterbacks that went before. Now they got Von Miller and Bradley Chubb rushing quarterbacks. That's a scary pair, man. And I think, especially for Von Miller, that frees up. Last year he was getting double teamed all year because he was like the only guy that gets the quarterback. Now you got to put somebody on Chubb that frees up Miller. I think that's going to be an elite defense. Sorry, I just wanted to rant there, but I had to justify it because I know there's going to be a lot of people all over that. At 3, this is tough, man. I have the Chiefs at 3, and it's incredible to say because I honestly think they could be a bubble playoff team. I just, with them right now, I'm not set on Pat Mahomes because what I've seen of him, he looked okay, but I just haven't seen enough of him to be this is the guy that's going to lead them to the playoffs and lead them to a Super Bowl. Honestly, they have the tools to be a Super Bowl team. I just think that the that uncertainty at the QB spot is going to be big. And then 4th, I have the Raiders. Not much to say about them. I mean, I think they can be a decent team. I just think they'll be last in this division. Their defense blows besides Khalil Mack. They have one of the worst secondaries in football. I think that that's going to be the rankings for the AFC West. Now we are going to take a little bit of a break.
Well, hold on. You want to do AFC playoff picture first, or?
Yeah, sure. That's fine. Let's do that. So we'll do AFC playoff picture first, and then we'll go on to Brendy's in case you missed this segment. So, yeah, guys, give me your. Again, sorry to you, Bobby. Give me your AFC playoff picture.
Okay, so I got the Pats going at number 1 again. I think no one has them quite yet. The only team I am worried about. The only team I am worried about is really the Steelers. They still have Le'Veon Bell, which is it's still gonna be a problem if the AFC Championship ends up being the Pats and the Steelers again. I think the Pats still got it though. Second, I got the Steelers. Obviously, still a loaded team that I just don't understand how they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl yet with the team that they have. It really doesn't make any sense. But here we are. So I have them running out second. I have the Jags at 3rd. Still, they're going to be the same team as last year. Going to be a solid team. Don't think they have it to get back in the AFC Championship again. I think the Steelers, if they end up playing against the Steelers again, they'll lose. Just not sold on it yet. I got the Chargers running out 4th. And then for the wild cards, I have, and this may be a little hot, we'll see. I have the Chiefs and the Ravens, respectively.
You said Ravens?
Yes, which that is a little hot. And it's funny, I said to my roommate earlier, who was a Ravens fan, I said I gave them the bottom wild card spot, and he tells me that's very generous of you. He said to me. But I want to see Flacco bounce back a little bit. I think he has the opportunity to do it, and there's a lot of things that the Ravens have going on. Like this season kind of depends on a lot of people's jobs depends on this season.
So it has the possibility for being a bit of a bounce back. So I think they'll just hit the wild card. They did have a 9-7 record last season, so it's not like they can't win games. They just have to kind of pick up their productivity a little bit. That's all. So and as for you know what, I'll save it for the Super Bowl predictions at the end. But those are my playoff rankings for the AFC.
All right, so mine, I got the Patriots and Steelers at 1 and 2 respectively. Not really any argument there. Number 3, I've got Jacksonville. Like I said, with their young core, I feel like they're only going to get better. You know, I can't necessarily argue them for a 1 or 2 spot just because of how good the Pats and the Steelers are. But I definitely do think, you know, maybe give them a season or two, they could certainly get a 1 or 2 seed.
Absolutely.
You know, just it all depends on how their young core develops and if they avoid major injuries. And then number 4, I've already been yelled at this before. I have the Raiders at 4 just because they're winning a very, quite honestly, a very medium level division where like 9 or 10 wins I feel like would be able to get you atop of the division. So I have them at 4, and quite honestly, I feel like I could probably flip them and the Chiefs around, and it would be just as fine. But anyway, for my wild card spots, I've got Tennessee as the 5th seed, and I've got Kansas City as the 6th seed. And the reason I got Tennessee as high as I do is because I have a good feeling about Marcus Mariota, and I actually have a pretty good feeling about their defense. Whereas the Chiefs, I kind of have in there just as kind of like a no other team in the AFC I feel like belongs there except for another team in that division. So I'm going to go with Tennessee as my 5 and Kansas City as my 6.
All right, and then I will round it off. In the AFC, we got number 1 for me. I got the Steelers. Like I said this earlier, I think Le'Veon Bell. I think Le'Veon Bell is gonna have a monster year. I'm like that's literally just gonna carry them. I got the Pats at 2. No surprise, they're always either 1 or 2. They're always getting that first round bye. At 3, this is gonna go against what you guys said. I have the Chargers at 3 over the Jags at 4. Now hold on. The only reason I say that because I think the Jags are a better team. The only reason I have the Chargers at 3 is just because they have a little bit of an easier schedule. The AFC West is playing the AFC North this year, so you got the like they'll be playing like the Bengals. They'll be playing the Browns. The Ravens, and then the AFC West is also playing the NFC West this year, so like they'll be playing the Seahawks, the Cardinals. So I just think they have a little bit of an easier schedule. That's why I have them there. Yeah, and then for the 5th seed, I got the Texans. Like I said, I like what I've seen on Deshaun Watson. I think that defense, if healthy, are going to have a bounce back year, and then the hot take that everybody is gonna say about I do have the Broncos at 6. I think they get carried by I think they get carried by their still elite defense. I think Keenum in that offense does enough and gets them at 6 seed. Now like the one that like I said is on the cusp for me is the Chiefs, but that is for another time. These are my predictions. Now we are going to take a little bit of a break from the NFL talk. We'll try to speed things up for the NFC because we are running a bit long here. But right now we're going to do Brendy's in case you missed the segment. So go ahead and take it away.
All right, guys, for the 4th episode in a row, this segment is brought to you by nobody. All right, so in case you missed it, we're going to start out in Atlanta with Joseph Martinez. So as you guys know, he recently has tied the Major League Soccer the Major League Soccer's scoring record for goals in a single season. And he has the chance to break that tonight, actually. So, in an interview recently with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, he has stated, and keep in mind, this is like during like the big like transfer window period for like European teams. Joseph Martinez has repeatedly stated that he is not interested in playing overseas, that he loves Atlanta and wants to be with Atlanta as long as he can. Now, is this Joseph Martinez obviously is scoring on a record pace and there's no stopping him. Is this a good sign for Major League Soccer and the state of soccer in America in general?
I think as somebody who has dabbled, I guess would be the word, in MLS this year more than usual, I think what he's doing is like pretty awesome. I mean, Atlanta's a really good team. Still like a pretty new team in MLS standards. I think I went to a game this year where he scored and he shushed the crowd, and I swear to God, he looked directly in my eyes when he did that. But yeah, no, dude, the guy's a baller, and in MLS standards at least, and I think hopefully like more players like him, like his talent level, his finishing touch will play in the MLS, and I like that he came out and said like, I want to stay and stuff like that, because he's had really good success there, and you don't want to get things in the locker room all.
Hey, apparently the ladies love him too.
I bet.
Oh man.
But no, I think it's a good thing.
All right, you want to add anything really quick, Bobby?
I give it nothing to add. I don't follow it enough, but good to hear that people actually like MLS more than like the Premier League or Liga or any of that.
Right, and it's happy. Like as an Atlanta United fan, that makes me happy to hear. Like this boy might be around for 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good sign if they have players like that, not just in Atlanta, but like in all of Major League Soccer in general.
Yeah,
I feel like it would definitely help the growth of the sport. All right, moving on. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Denzel Ward was injured in a preseason game.
Yeah, last night.
Yeah, last night. And there's no telling how long he'll be out. I don't think that there's been any confirmation yet, if anyone can confirm that for me.
There has not, no.
Okay, so we don't know how long.
Sorry, real quick. At time of recording, there is not any information, because like I said, this literally happened last night.
Right, so we don't know how long he'll be out. It looks like it was a pretty serious injury. However, that raises a previous argument that John Harbaugh suggested last season, and it's starting to pick up a bit more conversation. Now, last season, John Harbaugh suggested that the preseason either gets shortened or gets completely eliminated, because coaches believe that they can train their players hard enough to be ready for the first game of the season, and that the preseason is kind of unnecessary because by that point they kind of already know who's going to be a starter and a backup. Do you agree with what John Harbaugh had to say about that? Because it's starting to pick back up a little bit, not just from him, but like all over the National Football League.
I 150% agree with that. I think like players have been calling for this, especially this year. Like I feel like the last 2 years, there's been like so many injuries in preseason. Last night, if anybody missed it, the Browns played the Eagles in a barn burner of a game, which ended 5-0. That's whatever, but I actually seen the play. He injured his back. It looked pretty bad. He did walk off under his own power, which is good. But yeah, just like I feel like every day, like there's another injury that comes out where a guy's missing the rest of the season, and it's because of a preseason injury. Excuse me. I think it's. I don't know. I think it at least needs to be short.
I think if it was like if they started shortening it to like maybe like 2 or 3 games, I think most people would be okay with that. I just get sick and tired of people like hearing about like I'm exaggerating, but I don't want to hear about a torn ACL in the fourth preseason game. Like
Yeah.
that's awful.
So I actually I'm trying to pull it up again because it was funny that now you brought it up, but I just seen a headline and I'm trying to find it, but I think it was Todd Gurley who's been sitting this preseason, and he was asked like how's it been? He's like it's great, like and I like other players are like, yeah, I wish I could do that too, like cuz he sat the whole preseason to avoid injury. It's just unnet. Like, look, I don't want to get rid of preseason games completely because I really do think, like, first of all, you have to cut players, so like it gives you an idea. But second of all, it kind of gets you in tune again for the football season. If they
Right.
played like two, I'd be perfectly fine with that. You don't need to be killing these. Like, dude, again, like I said, so many guys are missed for the year.
That like if they were to cut 2 preseason games, they would be able to play in an entirely new division in the season.
Right, yeah. So like I don't know. I think we all kind of agree with that. Like the injuries are unbelievable. So
Yeah, it's a problem.
yeah, I agree with John. I almost said Jim, which is his brother, but John Harbaugh, yeah.
Well, it's because Jim makes the headlines and John doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly that.
All right, so moving on, last topic, talking about the World Cup in 2026. So, as you guys know, the World Cup in 2022 is going to be held in Qatar. Controversial in itself because it's going to be held in like November, December.
Yep.
And like there's that whole bribery thing. But in 2026, it's coming to North America. There's going to be 10 games held in Canada, 10 games in Mexico, and then the rest of the games are going to be held in the United States.
You're damn right they will be.
Yeah, and that includes all the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the final. So the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is actually considered to be at the very least a quarterfinal or a semifinal venue. And but there's one problem that comes with that, and you guys may or may not know about this. FIFA is not a fan of artificial turf.
Yep.
Yep.
They really are not. They really don't like this. But the reason that Mercedes-Benz Stadium has artificial turf is because the Atlanta United shares their stadium with the Falcons, and most football stadiums have artificial turf. Now, this Mercedes-Benz Stadium is not the only World Cup venue to have artificial turf. There's about like a list of about 10 stadiums that also have turf. Now this is obviously before there's a whole lot of planning for this World Cup. So one of two things could happen. One, FIFA could force them to temporarily use grass. I'm not sure how they can do that. Or FIFA could change their rules and say, okay, turf's okay. What do you guys think about that?
So, real quick, correct me if I'm wrong. I think, sorry if anybody heard that. I think the final is already set for MetLife Stadium, correct? Or I'm not sure.
Let me double check that really quick, just to be sure.
So
I'm pretty sure because that's been the venue for the Copa America. That's where the final was held for that. Last year? No, 2 years ago now. So yeah, it's an interesting thing because one thing you have to think about is like what these like I don't know how to like explain this. I guess like they're used to playing on a certain turf, I guess, especially for these big tournaments. I mean, I don't know how like if it's that big of a difference because the grass is pristine anyway. It's like ice essentially out there, how smooth everything goes. But the one thing about that stadium is the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is it's like one of the most beautiful stadiums right now, and it holds a big capacity. So I think that would be the draw for it because obviously I mean that place would sell out, I'm sure, and it's a beautiful venue. So
Really quick, if I may interrupt.
Yep.
So when the United bid basically wants the final to be in MetLife Stadium.
Mhm.
However, it is subject to FIFA approval, so it's not 100% confirmed yet.
Right.
However, in the their bid for it, they have like a list of like the playoff venues. One of them included Mercedes-Benz Stadium in like the semifinal. And then it has MetLife Stadium as the final venue. But that is subject to FIFA approval, despite the fact that the United bid has already won. So it is likely to be in MetLife Stadium, but it's not 100% yet.
Yeah, well, and I'm gonna say it's like likely, like you said, like I said, the Copa America final was there, and I think like a lot of the big soccer tournaments are usually held at MetLife, so I expect it to be there. But yeah, either way, I think like getting the Mercedes-Benz stadium to be a part of it would be big. Like I said, it's a beautiful new venue. I think it's something that should be approved.
Right.
So
So it'll have to get a little bit of time. We're not going to know for sure. With the whole turf thing, sometimes I feel like that gives Atlanta United like a slight advantage in Major League Soccer because they play their games on artificial turf, whereas a lot of Major League Soccer plays on grass.
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's interesting. No, I was just thinking that's interesting you say that, like as a fan, because like I don't. To me, honestly, like maybe it does make a difference, but I feel like it's just not that big of a difference. Like, because like I said, the grass is still pristine. Like I know there's going to be a little bit of a different feel, but I just think like I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't make that much of a difference.
All right. Well, I guess if no one else has anything else to add, then I guess we can go ahead and wrap up that segment, and we can
Yep.
move on to our NFC previews.
Yep. So we'll do the same format as last time. We're going to start with the NFC East. Bobby, floor is yours again.
Okay. I think this one was pretty freaking easy.
Yeah.
Again, it's similar to the AFC East. Have the Eagles at the top again. There is literally no sign of them slowing down. Wentz is going to be back. It's going to be interesting to see if he's the same Carson Wentz from last year. He may be a little hesitant on the knee, but I think he's still going to be dominant. A lot of targets. They're due for another run, man. I'm a firm believer in that. Second, got the Skins. Really no reason for the rest of the NFC. Honestly, I just think the Redskins are going to be just the better team out of the three. And then rounding out Cowboys and Giants, respectively. I see no potential in any of those two at all. I mean, the Cowboys have just completely flopped the past couple of years. It's been a rough ride for them, especially since they're without Dez. I don't think they got anything. So that's my NFC East.
All right. Well, surprisingly, me and Bobby actually completely agree on a division. I have the Eagles number 1, Redskins 2, Cowboys 3, Giants 4. I feel like that the Eagles aren't going to be as good as per se like they were last season because of Carson Wentz. I feel like he might slightly hesitate. Like, don't get me wrong, I still have them at the top of the NFC. But I feel like there might be a less. I feel like they will be a little bit less productive than they were last season. With that said, they will still be really good and definitely a Super Bowl contender. With the Redskins, honestly, I just see them as better than the Cowboys and the Giants, just because I don't see the Cowboys and Giants really doing anything. Maybe pulling off an upset win here and there in the season, but like having nothing to show for. And then the Cowboys, I've got 3, and then the Giants 4. I feel like maybe the Giants and Cowboys could switch at some point, but with this division, it's kind of hard to tell, except with the Eagles on the top. So yeah.
And unsurprisingly, I have different. I'm differing opinions on these guys. One thing I'm not differing on is Eagles are definitely top. They're the best team in this division, no doubt. They have it all. Carson Wentz will be back. It's going to be interesting to see if he's ready for the start of the season. That would be the only thing that really deters them. But I'll keep it short with these guys. It's their division. Number 2, I have the Cowboys. I think Zeke alone can carry this team above the Giants and Redskins because I just don't see the Giants. I'll just say I have the Giants at 3, the Redskins at 4. I think with the Cowboys, I think they just have a little bit more. I like Dak. I know a lot of people don't, but I like Dak. So I have them at 2. At 3, I have the Giants. Well, there you go. At 3, I have the Giants. I think Saquon, I think he'll have a decent year. The only thing with him is their offensive line isn't great, so we'll see how much yardage he gets. I think honestly between the Giants and the Redskins, it could be a toss-up. I have the Redskins at 4 for the only reason that with them losing Kirk is big. I know they have Alex Smith now, who's still a good quarterback, but he's aging. They don't have the I remember a few years ago the Redskins were talked about as one of the better teams in the NFC East, but I just don't see it anymore. Obviously, we mentioned earlier, lost Darius Geis to the ACL injury in preseason, who I thought he dropped in this draft, in the last draft because of his off-the-field issues, but he's an amazing player on the field. I thought he could have helped. He's out, so I have the Redskins at 4. We'll move on to the NFC North now. And Bobby, what are your rankings?
For the NFC North, unsurprising, Vikings again. So a strong team. Man, it must have sucked for them last year. Dear God, losing to the Eagles and then having to, the big thing was the Eagles going to the Super Bowl and then having to put the Eagles, logo and turf down, on the end zone, and then the Eagles winning in the same stadium. So I think they have a bit of a score to settle coming back. So, and they're definitely the best in the North by far. Second, I got the Lions. Again, no reason. Packers in 3rd. I know there's been a little more talk with them. I talked about them recently. Might be a team that you start making a run, but not sold on it yet, to be quite honest. Aaron Rodgers is still a great quarterback, by the way, though. So he just definitely lost some of his targets. Yep. So, but I have them in 3rd right now. And then 4th, the Bears. There's literally nothing to talk about. I see nothing.
They're young. They're on the rise.
Yeah, but not now. They'll be the talk in maybe a couple seasons, but
yeah, I agree.
This season ain't it. So that is my NFC North.
All right, my NFC North. All right, so I've got the Vikings at number 1 because I feel like, lo and behold, they are the best team in the division. Not necessarily by far, but I don't really see how any other team could compete with them in the division. Number 2, I've got the Lions, and hear me out. So last season, the Lions, they started out 2-0. Everyone was high on them, every single one. And then in week 3, they play the Falcons, and it appears that I think it was Golden Tate. Golden Tate appeared to have got the game-winning touchdown against the Falcons.
Yep.
With 8 seconds left on the clock. They reviewed it, and they said it wasn't. They said it wasn't. Let's see. They said it was 1 yard short, I think.
Yep.
So they went to review it. They said it was 1 yard short. They changed the ruling to 1 yard short. But then apparently, if they go back to a running clock, a 10-second runoff is required. So the game officially ended with the Falcons winning 30-26. And from that point on, I'm pretty sure the Lions were completely demoralized, and they were not able to basically finish off that season with the expectations that they had. And I think that game had a lot to do with it. And I know like it's hard to pinpoint exactly, when a season collapsed for one team, but I think that early in the season, I definitely think they didn't have that same kind of firepower that they did in week 1 and week 2. And I think if they are able to finish out games, they addressed the offensive line really well in the draft, I thought, which is why I have them at 2, especially if they can finish off the games and if they can improve off of what they did last season. I don't see how they can exactly take the division, but I have them as almost a lock for a wild card spot. And that's what I have in the Lions. The Packers, it's hard to tell with the Packers exactly what's going to happen with them, because let's be honest, I mean, last season was weird for the Packers. No one expected them to just be flat, not good. And there's no telling. There wasn't really a whole lot of things that they addressed during the offseason. I don't feel like, at least. I think the biggest thing that they got, let's see, I'm just going through right now. They got a couple cornerbacks in the draft. They got Alexander, Josh Jackson, and a few other dudes. But it's hard to pinpoint for me a reason for them to make a big jump in 2018. That's why I have them at 3. And then the Bears, I'm not really sold on Mitch Trubisky until he gets a good team around him, to say the least. So I have the Bears at number 4.
All right, and then I'll do mine real quick. The Vikings I have at number 1. That team was insane last year, and they just got better. Adding Kirk Cousins to any team is going to make them better. And then, they made some other additions. I'm looking back at the stats now from last year. It's crazy because they were number 1 in net total yards allowed. By the way, I'm getting all these stats from ESPN. I know they're all out there, but I just want to put that out there so I don't get myself in trouble. So they were number 1 in net total yards allowed, number 2 in pass yards allowed, number 2 in rush yards allowed, and number 1 in points allowed. This team was solid all around on defense. They continue to get better. I don't see them not winning this division. Number 2, you got Packers. And for the pure reason, I think Aaron Rodgers is literally going to drag this team and just put him on his back. Last year, he had the injury, which kind of derailed their season. But yeah, I think if he's healthy the whole year, which hopefully he is, I love watching Aaron Rodgers. I think he just carries that team into the playoffs on his back. I have the Lions at number 3. Like Brendy said, I actually really like the direction of this team's going. It's just that they're in a really good division. I like the players they drafted. I always like Matt Stafford. The dude has a rocket arm, and but I just have them at number 3 just because of the division they're in. Bears at number 4. Like I said before, I like the way they're going. They made some nice additions this offseason. Got Allen Robinson at wide receiver. But yeah, just a young team, and they'll still take a few years. Next, we're going to go to the NFC South, which a lot of debate around this yesterday when we were talking about it. Bobby, go ahead with your NFC South rankings.
Well, I as this will make Brendy happy, I have the Falcons taking the NFC South. I don't think they get enough love nowadays. They really don't. I don't think they are a top playoff contender, but in the division, I think they got it locked down. Rounding out, I have the Saints and the Panthers, which those are 2 teams that could easily be a dark horse playoff team. I'm convinced of that. Saints are on the rise again. Panthers have always been this really. They're kind of like the Chiefs, right? They're another team where they went to the Super Bowl and Tyler kicked their ass. And
I kicked their ass.
Yep, you did. And then they kind of fell off, but then they're this team that's always just there. They're always in the picture, but they're still not like championship caliber. You know what I mean? Like still a solid contender on a team I have in the wild card, but I still don't think they got it yet. But they're in such a weird state. It's just odd to me. And then rounding it out, got the Bucks, but the Bucks can easily. They're a team that's been getting a lot of traction too. So who knows where we'll end up in a season or two from now. But that is my answer.
Man, you remember when everyone was so high on the Bucks last season?
To be fair, I kind of was too, but they were gonna fall. I mean,
I didn't see why everyone was high on them.
No,
I just saw yeah, they had another year of like young productivity under their belt, but I didn't see them even making the playoffs.
So I have a theory on this, and I honestly think this is why the Bucks were on Hard Knocks last year and got a lot of love on Hard Knocks. And I think I'm serious about this. I really think like people are like, oh yeah, I'm kind of high on them. Because
this episode of the Come Play Podcast brought to you by Hard Knocks. Watch now on HBO and HBO Go.
But no, I think that's why. But yeah, sorry, I just needed to add that in there.
Yep,
no, you're good. So NFC South, that's obviously the division I like study hardcore to the end because it's got my team, the Falcons, and then every other team I also study intently to know if they are going to shit on my team or not. So I've got the Falcons at the top of the division. I don't necessarily have a win total for them. Maybe like 11. That's probably where I put them at. Because if I believe with another year under Steve Sarkisian's belt, see, Matt Ryan had 12 interceptions, I think, last year. About half of them weren't his fault because they like went through receivers' hands or they were tipped, like balls that should have been caught but weren't. I believe with another year under his belt, that will happen, hopefully less often. So that's why I have them up top of the division. And then it's hard to tell exactly the rest of the division what I believe is going to happen. I have the Saints as the 2 because I'm not sold on the Panthers at all. I believe they had a good run back in their Super Bowl season, only to get shit on by the Broncos and Cam Newton didn't dive in the fucking ball. And I believe since then the team has always been the team that should have but didn't. So I have the Saints at 2 and then the Panthers at 3. And then the Buccaneers, like I've said, I've studied this division so much. I don't understand why people are so high on the Bucs. I know like the hype for them isn't as strong this season as last season. But I don't see them as even a fringe playoff contender. I also don't see them as terrible though. I don't think it's completely far-fetched to say like every team in this division will have probably above 7 wins. So those are my AFC or NFC South predictions. I got Falcons 1, Saints 2, Panthers 3, and Bucks 4.
All right, and I'll
with the Saints taking a wild card spot, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I'll round it off. I have a little bit different. I have the Saints winning this division. Their offensive firepower is insane, and Alvin Kamara was pleasantly one of the the better players last year. He was electrifying on offense. Love to watch him. Drew Brees is still doing it. I think it's weird to say Drew Brees is underrated, but like I consider him one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and like I don't know, I just feel like everybody goes to somebody else for like best quarterback. So either way, that's here nor there. I have the Falcons at number 2, and I'll let you guys know something. Before we started recording, I had them at 3 and out of the playoffs, and that caused a lot of controversy around here. But looking into it a little bit more, I knew it was going. Looking into it a little bit more, I think my big thing for why I like the Panthers before was I liked their additions on offense this offseason. You still got Devin Funchess there, who I think is a very really good option. They had C.J. Anderson come in from the Broncos, which is tough to see, but I like him. Cam Newton, that dual threat of passing and running, I think is always hard. And then Greg Olsen, one of the better tight ends in the league. And then I looked at their defense, and look, I don't think their defense is bad by no means. Like they still have Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, Thomas Davis, stuff like that. It's just their secondary I really worry about. You got, I just don't like their corners, man. That was the big thing for me. They did add Dontari Poe from the Falcons. I do like that addition. But overall, I think the Falcons have one of the, they have one of the best offensive lines. From Pro Football Focus, they do rankings on like basically everything, and they have from last year, the Atlanta Falcons had the number 2 ranked offensive line. Now my only concern with the Falcons is, and this is not their fault, but they have a really unfortunate schedule. Their first 3 games are all against playoff teams and good playoff teams at that. They have the Eagles week 1. Sorry, let me bring it up again real quick. Brendy, I don't even know if you know off the top of their head, but I think they have the Eagles, Vikings, and Saints, I want to say.
Right.
So that's a pretty unfortunate start for any team, and that's one of the reasons.
I'm glad we get the Eagles in week 1, though. I'd rather get them in week 1 than like in week 9 or 10.
Yeah. Especially since like you don't know about Carson Wentz. I'm sorry. So they have the Eagles, Panthers, Saints. So all playoff teams last year. And then the other weird thing about them is that the 5 of the first 7 games are all home, which is fine and dandy, but that means their back half is going to be loaded with away games and tough matchups of that. They have the stint where 3 of 4 games is away games, and then they have a matchup with the Packers on December 9th in Lambeau, and it's going to be like -20 with 40-mile-per-hour winds. So there you go. You have that. They lost Adrian Claiborne and Dontari Poe, respectively. Claiborne going to the Patriots, Poe to the Panthers. But they still have an amazing defense. Obviously, the offense, the offensive line. So obviously, like I said, I had them out before, but I came to my senses and I put them at second. I just like the Saints more, man. Like I just think that offense, and it's always something with the Saints. Like I always feel like they just have something about them. So I have them at 1, Falcons at 2, Panthers at 3, and Bucks rounding it out at 4. Bucks just quickly interesting. Obviously, they're going to be without Jameis Winston for the 2 games for the suspension to start the season. Those are going to be a rough 2 games for them. So, yeah, we'll see. But moving on, we have the last division. We have the NFC West, and Bobby, all you.
Alrighty. I don't think this one was too hard either. I got the Rams at the top. Decent season last year. Still think they're just gonna, riding this wave into the playoffs, and they're a solid team. I'm there's really no downfall of them at the moment. Not Super Bowl by any means, but definitely a thorn in the side for any playoff team. And then I got the Seahawks, which they've been, man, what a fall from grace.
Yeah, no.
What a bad fall from grace, but still better than the rest of the team's division. So I have them in second and missing the playoffs even as well. And then rounding it out, got the Cardinals and the 49ers. Really nothing in sight for them. Yeah, that rounds up my NFC West. I don't have any in-depth opinions on this one, but that's really what I can come up with and gather from these 4 teams. So that's my NFC West. Yeah,
I don't really have a whole lot of insight on this division either because I personally think it's the least interesting division in football right now.
Exactly.
I have, except for the Rams, like the Rams, like they're pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I have them at number 1.
That's pretty.
And then I have the Seahawks at 2. Like, I'm sorry, Legion of Boom is over. It's not coming back. Like, Nope. Seahawks, they're the team that should have but didn't.
And their
then
stupid green jerseys.
I've got the 49ers at 3, just because of Jimmy G.
And
Simple as that.
That's
Because of Jimmy G and the fact that the Cardinals, the Cardinals don't really have anything. So I would have Rams 1, Seahawks 2, 49ers 3, Cardinals 4.
And I'll round it out. No surprise, I got the Rams at number 1. They are legit, man. That's a good team. And they only got better this offseason. They added Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, Brendon Cooks. The team just got better. Dominican Sue. I can go on and on. That team is legit. Now where I differ from you guys, and, this is where you guys got it wrong. The 49ers are not the 49ers of old. They got Jimmy G at the helm. They are a team to be reckoned with in a few years. Not now, but in a few years, look after that team. I got that at number 2.
I'm talking about now.
Number 3. Hey, man, I'm just saying. I got them at 2 now.
But you know what? It's not that hot of a take. I'm kind of with you. I mean, Jimmy G proved that he is a force to be reckoned with. He can absolutely throw and play. I am not biased because he was a Patriot. I think he proved to everybody. I'm serious. So I'm not against that call one bit.
I have the Seahawks at number 3. The only thing I see, they still have some pieces on defense. By the way, Richard Sherman went to the 49ers. Big addition there.
Yeah, I accidentally said Fitz instead of Richard Sherman. I don't know why I said Larry Fitz. Larry Fitz is still playing for the fucking Cardinals. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I got them mixed up for some reason. I don't know.
Same division.
So, yeah, I have the Seahawks at 3rd. I mean, I think Russell Wilson is an MVP caliber quarterback. It's just the problem with him is he has nobody around him.
No one.
They have Doug Baldwin, he's a top receiver, but that offensive line blows. The defense is regressing, so I have them at 4, or 3 rather, and 4 I have the Cardinals. The thing with the Cardinals is they're a kind of interesting case. They just drafted Josh Rosen, in the draft, and he could be somebody a quarterback. He was earlier in the year, he was the top-ranked quarterback, and then he ended up being, I think, the 4th quarterback selected. So hopefully he'll develop. But they have some star players. They have David Johnson, one of the best running backs in the league. They have Patrick Peterson, one of the best corners in the league. And then they have Chandler Jones in the defensive line, who is, a pro baller himself. So they're an interesting case because they have a couple really big, superstars. If they can build around that, they could have a solid team in a few years. But that's for another time. So now we will quickly look at the playoff picture for the NFC, and then we will wrap up the show with giving our Super Bowl pick. So, Bobby, what is your NFC playoff picture looking like?
All right, I got the Eagles winning the NFC, or top seed of the NFC, I should say, but my Super Bowl as well. But anyway, I still think no one can really touch them. They're still a super strong team and a force to be reckoned with, and I just don't see any slowdown from this team. They're riding a huge high from the Super Bowl, and I really don't think there's going to be anything that's going to be crashing on them anytime soon. Number 2, got the Vikings. Again, like I said earlier, still a very strong team, and they may have some revenge on their mind. So they'll be a team to keep an eye on. Number 3, I got the Rams. Again, solid team. Going to be a solid playoff contender when the postseason comes around. Number 4, I got the Falcons. Don't think they'll go too far besides that, but they're definitely going to win their division and make the playoffs regardless. And rounding out the wild card, I actually have the Saints and the Panthers, respectively, as the wild card. And that'll be my NFC.
All right, Brendon.
All right. So for my NFC, here's what I got. I got the Eagles at number 1. I don't necessarily see them in the Super Bowl because I feel like there are other teams that could compete with them when it comes to the playoffs. Number 2, I got the Falcons, and I'll explain why in a minute. Number 3, Rams. I think they're a very well-built team, and I think obviously they'll come out in division at the top. Vikings at number 4, and then my wild card, I got the Lions and Saints. Reason I have the Falcons so high is because I really believe that second-year offense is going to come through, similar to how it did under Kyle Shanahan. Super Bowl team, second year, new offense after struggling after the first year. I have the Falcons going to the Super Bowl, and I have them. I have them losing. I have them losing to the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
All right.
And I'll give my playoff picture real quick. Now, get ready for the hot take. But I don't think it's much of a hot take, but you guys I know will. I do not have the Eagles at 1. I do not have the Eagles at 2. So there's
Ah,
I had the Rams at number 1. I really like.
you
like I
believe
said,
in this team.
I do. I love Jared Goff. Again, another strong arm QB. I like the weapons they have. Number 2, I had the Vikings. That defense is insane. Yeah, I think that carries them. By the way, one thing I gotta say, the NFC is so much stronger than the AFC. It's
By a
ridiculous.
mile. By a mile.
Number 3, I have the Eagles. Now, the reason I have the Eagles at 3 is because, and this is literally the only reason, I'm worried about Carson Wentz at the start of the season. Like, if he doesn't play like the first, week 1, week 2, week 3, or whatever, obviously that's not going to hurt for them. Like, this playoff picture is not what I think is going to happen in the playoffs. I just think if he misses the first couple of games, they have a chance to drop below them. So I have them at 3. Saints at 4. Winning the AFC South, they get 4. I have the Falcons at 5, and then I have the Packers at 6. Literally being carried by Aaron Rodgers. So Bobby, I'll have you give your Super Bowl pick first. Obviously, Brendan, you just gave his, and then I'll give mine after you.
Okay, so on the AFC side, I have the Steelers. I'm going against what I feel is the right answer, but I don't know. I definitely don't feel as comfortable, at least right now, with the Pats. Even though I love them to death, and I still believe they're going to be, the possibility of them going back still exists. I think. I guess what I'm afraid of is the Steelers making a huge run since Le'Veon Bell's lost last year, and they still have their good offense, right? Like that, they're scary. They're a team I am legitimately scared of. So I have the feeling that they'll get revenge on Jacksonville, and they'll end up being the Patriots and go into the Super Bowl as AFC champs. On the NFC side, I have the Eagles going back. I seriously think they have all the holes plugged in. And this does, as you said, depend on Carson Wentz. If he's able to play the way he did last year and stay healthy, they're going back. I just don't see how really anyone could argue with it.
The biggest opponent to their Super Bowl run?
The Vikings.
Okay.
I would say the Vikings. I know the Rams are a close second, but definitely the Vikings. Like I said earlier, they're still a very strong contender. I definitely have the Eagles going back in. As for the winner, if Carson Wentz stays and is healthy and gets back into his Carson Wentzy self, I have Eagles as repeat champs. But it will be, if it's them and the Steelers, it will be a slugfest.
That'll be interesting. That'd be a battle of Pennsylvania. But
yes, it would, and you know damn well I am cheering for Philly.
All right,
dear God.
I'm gonna go. We're gonna go 3 for 3 here on the AFC side. I got the Steelers. I think that offense is just too potent. I do worry about their defense, especially with Ryan Shazier going to be out for the year. Obviously, that was a big story. We don't know if he'll ever return the football, but he's going to definitely be out this year. That's a big hole for their middle linebacker. I just think that offense will carry them. Mm-hmm. And I'm riding with them, baby. I'm going LA Rams.
Wow, man.
I'm going LA Rams behind Todd Gurley, Jared Goff. That unbelievable defense, and I'm actually going to pick the Rams to win the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And and I wasn't sure if you guys were going to pick a score. I don't know why I would pick the score this early, but I just had.
I'm not going to pick a score.
Yeah, I don't know why I did. 28-24. So if this actually happens and I pick the score right from preseason, I think I'd be.
Really? That low scoring of a game too? Really?
28-24. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, and they're not low, but I would have
think it
thought
would be
that would have
high.
been a very back and forth offensive battle.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really believe in the Rams. So,
Yeah,
there you go. So that is it, guys.
no,
I know.
Brendy didn't give his. Brendy didn't give his.
Yeah, he
I
did.
did.
Oh, did
he
he?
did
Oh, okay.
before. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He picked the.
I didn't know if we were gonna have him elaborate.
I picked it just to I picked the Steelers and the Falcons in the Super Bowl. I picked the Steelers to win, despite the fact that Atlanta's playing in their home stadium.
Okay, I didn't think he elaborated, so that's why I just want to make sure he's got his due diligence. Okay.
Yep. So that is it, guys. I know this is a really long podcast, but that seems like the way it's going for us. It's a lot of fun. We like to elaborate, so that's why. But we appreciate you tuning in. We will be back next week. We haven't decided what we're talking about, but that'll be figured out. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys then. I appreciate everybody who listens. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll
Smash
talk to you
that
guys.
subscribe button.
Shut
Yeah,
up.
smash that
I
like
hate
button.
when YouTubers say that.
Smash that like button.
But anyway, we'll see you guys later.
Peace.